Chapter 1442. Phew! Wang Sheng watched from 100 meters away as Master Qian's head turned into a ball of flame. Only then did he let out a long sigh of relief. His entire body also relaxed from its tense state. If the instructors on Earth knew that I had to use 5 shots to kill a heavily injured and crippled enemy within 100 meters, I wonder how they would scold me, Wang Sheng said in a self-deprecating manner. Panting, he put away the sniper rifle. Despite being extremely tired, Wang Sheng didn't dare to sit down. He was afraid that if he sat down, he wouldn't have the energy to stand up again. Plus, he was carrying Lin Ling on his back. Such a simple action of sitting wasn't easy to complete. After quickly eating 3 healing pills, Wang Sheng just leaned on the trunk of the tilted tree and waited quietly for the medicine to take effect. Waves of medicine rushed into his body. Finally, after half an hour, Wang Sheng finally felt his spirit qi flowing. The previous desperate fight had already used up all the spirit qi in Wang Sheng's body. Now that there were no enemies, he didn't need to be afraid for the time being. After forcefully resting for a whole weekday, Wang Sheng felt much better. At least his internal organs were no longer in that burning pain. The nourishing effect brought by a weekday of spirit qi made Wang Sheng feel much more comfortable. After using the 7 words chant twice, Wang Sheng finally suppressed the injuries in his body. After using the 7 words chant on Lin Ling, Wang Sheng struggled to bandage himself so that the wounds wouldn't affect his movements as much as possible. After doing all this, Wang Sheng then slowly moved towards Master Qian's body. Master Qian's entire head was burnt, but it was undeniable that Master Qian's cultivation level was really strong. 2 armor-piercing bullets were enough to penetrate a car engine on Earth, but here it didn't even penetrate Master Qian's head. However, Master Qian didn't have the chance to play dead. Wang Sheng had never seen a master who was still alive after his head was burnt. This time, the Linglong Pavilion sent more than 50 experts, but except for the one who chased after Aki, the rest were all annihilated. Wang Sheng was certain of this, because all the people who died were personally killed by Wang Sheng. Not a single one of them was left alive. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough time. Wang Sheng didn't have the mood or the stamina to return and clean up the corpses along the way. He definitely wouldn't be able to take the spoils of war from those people. However, Wang Sheng would not let go of the things that Master Qian had. As the exquisite pavilion master, she must have something better than others. Wang Sheng used 5 minutes to dig out all of Master Qian's storage rings. Then, he carried Lin Ling and left. There had been many explosions in the previous battle, and the commotion was too great. It was possible that the experts from the various clans had already surrounded them. It wasn't a good idea to stay here. If any 9th stage realm expert came, the current Wang Sheng would have no choice but to surrender. Wang Sheng didn't want to give them such a chance. Besides, Wang Sheng still wanted to go back and check on Aki's situation. That stubborn woman was willing to die with him, and it could be considered as Wang Sheng had completely changed her image in his heart. He didn't dare to say anything else, but at least she could be considered as one of them. Wang Sheng had a hard time on the way back. He even hated himself for running so far away when he was fighting with these experts. As a result, it took him several hours to go back. Luckily, after the spiritual qi started to circulate, there was more and more spiritual qi in his body. Wang Sheng felt better and better. After 2 hours, Wang Sheng at least didn't have to worry about the injuries on his legs and stomach affecting him. Although he was still limping, the wounds had begun to itch. Wang Sheng knew that this was the sign of the 7 words technique stimulating his wounds to begin to heal. It was impossible for others to imagine that he could regrow flesh in a few hours. Unfortunately, the injuries on Wang Sheng's body were the lightest. The real trouble was the serious internal injuries and bone fractures. He had no choice. 1 against 50 experts who knew his own strengths and weaknesses and only controlled their strength to the peak of the 9th stage realm. Even if Wang Sheng had 3 heads and 6 arms, he wouldn't be able to come out unscathed. You couldn't blame Wang Sheng for telling everyone the secret of reaching the legendary realm. On one hand, even if the experts of the 8 families were in the 9th stage realm, they were still extremely powerful. It was better to let them enter a realm they didn't know about. On the other hand, Wang Sheng needed a group of legendary realm experts to fight those super beasts and break the formation on the glacier lake. With just Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su, how long would that take? Other than that, Wang Sheng had to leave the strongest people at the outskirts of Lin Ling's sealing formation. Otherwise, who knew what those guys would do? Even Song Yin might not be able to control the situation. In addition, if Wang Sheng had exposed the fact that he could advance to the legendary realm without anyone knowing, it would have been another matter whether he could have safely broken the seal or not. However, this did indeed increase the enemy's strength. For example, when Wang Sheng encountered an expert from the Pavilion of Delicacy, he could only fight until he was exhausted, nearly dying on the spot. Wang Sheng's luck was good, and he had a lot of battle experience. That was why he could barely win against a group of experts from the Linglong Pavilion. If it were the professional combat experts of the 8 great clans, the outcome would probably be a different story. The unexpected encounter at the Linglong Pavilion caught Wang Sheng off guard, but he could only accept reality now. 2 hours later, Wang Sheng finally arrived at the scene where he separated with Aki. Aki was indeed not here. Wang Sheng knew that although she was stubborn, she was smart enough. She would definitely escape in that situation. Even if she just drew a master away, it would help Wang Sheng take some pressure off and reduce Wang Sheng's enemies. Relying on his memory, Wang Sheng found Aqi's location at the time and began to observe the traces there. A few minutes later, Wang Sheng began to follow a route that wasn't very clear and traced it all the way. Wang Sheng observed the tracks along the way very clearly, and his judgment was also very clear. One of them was left by the experienced Aqi. There were almost no tracks left, and only a little would occasionally appear. The other was very violent. It was like a beacon for Wang Sheng to find someone. It was clearly left by the master from the Linglong Pavilion, who wasn't familiar with life in the land of Thousand Despair, who hunted Aki. After tracking for more than 20 kilometers, it took Wang Sheng more than 2 hours before Wang Sheng saw the body of a stranger lying in a pool of blood. Not far from this body, Wang Sheng saw Aki. She was sitting on the ground, leaning against a tree. Her eyes were starting to lose their light. Chapter 1443. The minute he saw Aki, Wang Sheng's heart felt as though it was wrenched fiercely. From afar, Wang Sheng used a 7-words formula at Aki and speedily ran towards Aki's side. When he passed by that exquisite pavilion's top exponent, Wang Sheng's spiritual qi subconsciously checked on him, and he was certain that that fellow was already dead. He didn't know what method Aki used to trap and kill this 9th-stage realm top exponent. To Aki, whose cultivation was only its 6th-stage realm peak, this was already an extremely outstanding achievement. If this news were to spread outside, it was guaranteed that Aki would become one of the high-leveled killers. What made one even more astonished was that Aki was still hanging on to her last breath. Perhaps she was waiting for Wang Sheng, or perhaps it was something else. Anyway, the 7-words formula slowed down the speed of Aki's life, draining away, and following that, Aki saw Wang Sheng staggering towards her side. Witnessing this scene, Aki's eyes shone with brilliance and her face twitched, wanting to make a smiling action, but her muscles were no longer under her control. It only twitched a little, but she didn't smile in the end. But Wang Sheng had already seen the happiness in Aki's gaze, as though as long as Wang Sheng was alive, he would be able to make Aki happy. But this happiness only lasted for a moment, and later Aki's gaze started to slacken as her pupils slowly dilated. Wang Sheng had already rushed over, and after he used the 7-words formula, he didn't even think as he directly took out the last syringe and injected it into Aki. Risking her life to bring away a strong enemy was the limit of what Aki could do for Wang Sheng. Facing a seriously injured and dying Aki, why would Wang Sheng be stingy with a single syringe? If it wasn't for the fact that this 9th-stage realm top exponent was missing, Wang Sheng would probably have died under exquisite pavilion's encirclement. Because at that time, Wang Sheng no longer had the strength to deal with an expert. It could be said that Aki had really saved Wang Sheng's life. The injection that stimulated the potential of life was indeed a high-tech product of the military on the Earth. After a while, Aki obviously recovered some of her vitality. She was no longer in a state where her life was constantly fading away. However, this did not mean that Aki had gotten better. She had only stimulated the last of her life potential. Wang Sheng just didn't want her to lose her life in a short period of time. She still needed further treatment. Slightly lifting up Aki's left hand, which was clutching her stomach, Wang Sheng saw a ghastly, big, bloody hole and a short spear which was still stuck on it. That short spear was stabbed in from the front and passed through the back of Aki's waist. More than half of the spear was nailed onto the tree trunk behind Aki, and only a small part was left in Aki's body. Wang Sheng could only see the spear's shaft from the outside. Aki wasn't leaning on the tree trunk to recuperate, but she was nailed onto the tree trunk and unable to move. Wang Sheng looked at this hair-raising injury and simply couldn't imagine what kind of attack Aki had suffered. How many methods did she use to escape from a 9th-stage realm top exponent for 20 over miles, and even tricked that top exponent to death? First, he fed Achi a healing pill, so that she could slightly recover some of her spiritual energy and increase some of her physical strength. Then, Wang Sheng carefully used the Tiger Fong army knife to cut off the spear on Aki's back. 7 words formula protected Aki's vitality. Hugging Aki, he hardened his heart and pulled the spear out from the front. There was no anesthetic. With Aki's injury, Wang Sheng didn't dare to use anesthetics. When Wang Sheng suddenly pulled out the spear, Aki was in so much pain that she fainted. This was also good. While Aki was unconscious, Wang Sheng quickly took action. Once the spear was pulled out, there were 2 holes on the front and back and blood spurted out. Wang Sheng didn't dare to stop the 7 words formula. At the same time, he sprinkled his own handmade hemostatic powder on both sides. The military's rapid hemostatic powder was indeed effective. Very soon, the wounds on Aki's front and back stopped spurting blood. Wang Sheng used the bandages and gauze from the first aid kit to carefully bandage the wounds. Then, he gave Aki 2 more pills. Aki couldn't swallow the pills by herself. Wang Sheng held the pills in his mouth and fed them to Aki mouth to mouth. The process looked very erotic, but Wang Sheng didn't have the slightest romantic thoughts. This was a life-saving first aid process. Whoever had erotic thoughts about Aki, who was covered in blood, would be a pervert. The 7 words formula had a miraculous effect on external injuries. Seeing that Aki's breathing had stabilized after taking the pills, Wang Sheng also felt lucky. Luckily, when the spear pinned Aki, Aki didn't pull it out herself. She didn't lose much blood. Otherwise, Wang Sheng would have to consider if he had to use his own blood to give Aki a blood transfusion. This was the most severe of the external injuries. There were 2 other shallow cuts on the other parts of the body. Wang Sheng simply sprinkled some hemostatic powder on them and bandaged them up. The most troublesome thing was the penetrating wound on Aki's body. Needless to ask, she must have been injured by the 9th-degree realm expert. 6th-degree realm peak fighting against a 9th-degree realm expert. To be injured like this if the opponent died wouldn't be considered a failure. But the injury was unavoidably serious. Wang Sheng used the injection and the 7 words formula to stop it from worsening. To recover, it still needed time. Aki was also unconscious, and there were no signs of her waking up in a short period of time. Wang Sheng was very clear that this was the human body's self-protection mechanism and the need for recovery from injuries. Aki would probably be unconscious for a long period of time. As long as she was recuperated properly, when she woke up, her injuries would get better and she would no longer be on the verge of death. After taking care of Aki and seeing that Aki's breathing had stabilized, Wang Sheng was completely relieved. But then, Wang Sheng started to smile bitterly. Lin Ling needed to be taken care of in all aspects, so she had been on Wang Sheng's back the whole time. Every once in a while, Wang Sheng would need to use the 7 words to adjust her body. Wang Sheng was seriously injured and needed to recuperate from time to time. But now, there was another Aki, and she didn't even have the ability to move. But Wang Sheng couldn't stay in this place for long. With such a huge commotion, Unless the people from the 8 families were blind and deaf, they wouldn't notice. Now, there were definitely people rushing over in this direction. Once he was surrounded by the masters of the 8 families, Wang Sheng wouldn't be able to leave even if he wanted to. Wang Sheng could only carry Lin Ling and carry Aki, limping into the depths of the forest. No matter what, he had to leave this place first in case he was surrounded. Luckily, Wang Sheng recovered well. Although he still had internal injuries, his stamina recovered quite a bit. With Wang Sheng's strength and stamina, it wasn't a difficult thing to carry 2 girls. The 2 girls weren't very heavy. Although it affected Wang Sheng's movements, it wasn't enough to make it hard for Wang Sheng to move. Less than an hour after Wang Sheng left with Aki and Lin Ling, a search master appeared in this area. The first thing he saw when he arrived was the dead body of the 9th State Master. Chapter 1444. The expert's first reaction upon seeing the corpse was to get into a defensive stance. At the same time, he quickly hid behind the trunk of a large tree. He only came out when he found that there was no one around. He carefully examined the corpse's condition and then looked around. After a while, he accurately found the tree that Aki had been nailed to. There were broken short spears nailed to the tree trunk, blood, and some other messy things. All of these indicated that someone had been injured and had been treated. The absence of a corpse and no one else could only mean that the person had left or been taken away. After careful observation, the expert determined the direction in which Wang Sheng had left. Given Wang Sheng's current condition, it was impossible for him to travel through the land of 1,000 extremes without leaving any traces. Not even the old Taoist Ling Su could do so, let alone the seriously injured Wang Sheng. However, the expert did not dare to follow him casually. After all, they knew that the person chasing him was Wang Sheng, an expert who could summon wind and rain in the land of 1,000 extremes. If he was not a legendary expert, just the insects and demonic beasts alone would be enough to bury many people in the land of 1,000 extremes. After discovering the situation, the expert did not say anything and immediately returned to report. This time, it was not just the experts of one clan who were chasing him. 8 great clans were all present, and even the commanders were gathered in one place to gather information from all over. It had been 3 days since Wang Sheng had come out. In fact, Song Yin had already led the people from the various clans out of the underground passage a day ago. Thanks to Wang Sheng and Ah Qi, the people from the 8 great clans who were underground did not spend too much time finding the exit. After spending a great deal of effort to dig it open, the final formation was no longer a problem for the formation experts from the 8 great clans. The ones who had left were Song Yin and the people in charge of the other 7 clans. The person from the Dai clan was already dead and had been replaced by another person who had been present at the time. The first thing they did after coming out was to send a message to the heads of the various clans and let them make a decision. Of course, Song Yin did the same, but she alone was enough to make the decision. The rest of the experts stayed underground and checked the stone pillars one by one, marking those with formations. When the clan's experts arrived, they would unseal those formations one by one. Upon receiving the news, the patriarchs of the various families did not dare to delay. Without hesitation, the patriarchs and grand elders immediately set off for the core region of the ground of 1,000 Despair. At the same time, he issued an order to kill anyone who wasn't a member of the 8 great clans, including Wang Sheng. Of course, the secret orders might be slightly different for each family. Some hoped to rope in Wang Sheng, while others wanted to eliminate him completely. By the time the expert who discovered Aki's location returned to the Joint Command Center, it was already half an hour later. It couldn't be helped. This area was too wide, and it would take time to go back and forth. We found a corpse. His throat was slit. It didn't take more than half a day. There are 2 corpses. One of them had his neck twisted while the other was stabbed in the chest. 5 corpses. There are traces of explosions and the pungent smell of gunpowder. The cause of death is that their throats were slit without any resistance. 1 corpse. His jaw was broken and he was stabbed in the neck. He had a heavy sniper crossbow with him. 1 corpse. Someone stabbed him to death with a poisonous needle. The attacker must have been badly injured and was nailed to a tree by a short spear. But he's gone. When the experts of the 8 great clans worked together to investigate what happened in area, their efficiency was frighteningly high. They found all the corpses within 2 hours. 53 corpses were found. The people sent by the Pavilion of Delicacy to besiege Wangsheng were all found. Do you recognize anyone? The leaders of the 8 great clans gathered together, their foreheads covered in cold sweat. The leader of the Tang family asked each expert who came back with the same question calmly. Everyone shook their heads. This was also the biggest reason why the leaders of the 8 great clans were sweating profusely. After their inspection, more than 30 of the 50 experts were at the legendary realm. They didn't recognize any of them. They had never seen any of them before. Where did so many terrifying experts come from? They didn't even have an identity? If Master Qian had died normally, someone might have been able to recognize his face. However, when Master Qian died, his brain was burned by Wangsheng's armor-piercing spear. His whole head was on fire and turned into a lump of charcoal. If someone could recognize Master Qian from that lump of charcoal, that person would definitely be a god. The rest of the people of the Pavilion of Delicacy spent most of their lives working in the most secret coin-making workshop of the Pavilion of Delicacy. Each of them appeared in the outside world no more than twice. They appeared twice in a few decades, and no one knew where they had appeared. If they could be recognized, the 8 great clans would really prosper. Obviously, the 8 great clans didn't have such luck. No one could recognize the identity of these experts, let alone know where they came from. The 8 leaders couldn't help but break out in cold sweat at the thought of such a terrifying hidden force living leisurely under their noses when the 8 great clans controlled the world. However, what made them tremble from the bottom of their hearts was that after their analysis, they found that these 53 experts had actually died in the hands of one person. This person was the Duke Changsheng, Wangsheng, whom their master had specially instructed. Their leader in charge of hunting down Wang Sheng must have known what had happened when he left. Wang Sheng brought along a young assassin Aki, who was at the peak of the 6th-degree realm, and carried a weak woman on his back. There were 3 people in total, and 2 of them were considered burdens. One person fought against 53 experts, among which there were more than 30 experts of the legendary realm. Just thinking about it gave them goosebumps. Although the battlefield was distributed within a radius of dozens of miles, no one felt that Wang Sheng was a coward. 1 against 53, and the side with more people was completely annihilated. What kind of concept was that? If it was any one of them, they would have been long dead. How could he kill all the enemies? Duke Changsheng should have been seriously injured. The leader of the Song family didn't seem to be surprised at this result. After summarizing all the characteristics of the corpses, he said his own conclusion. What do you mean? Everyone was stunned, and all turned to the side of the Song family. Think about the location of the wounds on these people. The leader of the Song family sighed and explained to everyone they were all killed by Duke Changsheng face to face. Chapter 1445. Everyone was taken aback and immediately flipped through the records. After a round of inspection, it was indeed so. Most of them had wounds on the front of their bodies. Very few of them had wounds on their backs. Even if there were, 90% of them were penetrating wounds. They were stabbed from the front to the back. What did this mean? If the leader of the Song family hadn't reminded them, they wouldn't have realized it. But now, everyone understood almost instantly. Wang Sheng killed his enemies face to face every time. Obviously, he was afraid that they would hurt the woman on his back. This kind of fighting method was actually the most desperate and desperate. It was almost risking one's life for another. The weakest of these masters who died were at the later stage of the 9th stage. Even if it was face to face, Wang Sheng wouldn't be able to kill them in one strike. This wasn't like the battle between the old retainer and the 3 great retainers where ordinary 9th stage realm experts weren't able to get near. Everyone seemed to have the ability to defend Wang Sheng. Under such a situation, it was impossible for Wang Sheng to kill the other party face to face without paying a price. Even if only half of them could counterattack when Wang Sheng killed them, Wang Sheng would have to suffer at least 20 heavy blows. Facing the desperate attacks of those powerful legend rank experts, Wang Sheng would probably have to pay a heavy price to deal with them. It was unbelievable that Wang Sheng could still bring someone away after 20 times. Everyone could understand why Wang Sheng had to resort to such a helpless method. It could only be said that the identity of the woman on his back was too important. She was so important that even if Wang Sheng were to be injured or even lose his life, he would not allow her to come to harm. Who was that? Why would Wang Sheng do this? Other than the representatives of the 8 families, the leaders, and the elders who were in charge of killing Wang Sheng, no one else knew who she was. They didn't even know what happened in the underground world. They could only infer that the identity of the woman was extremely important from some signs. This was also in line with what the family leaders told them secretly. Everyone was very curious about who the woman was. Carrying a frail woman on his back and facing off against more than 50 experts head-on, the experts of the 8 great clans in this area felt their blood boil at the thought of Wang Sheng's battle. Even if they were enemies, it did not prevent them from sincerely admiring Duke Changsheng. They were combat experts, and they especially worshipped this kind of heroic spirit that would go against millions of people for a certain noble purpose. It must be a delightful thing to be enemies with such a hero, right? Everyone was looking forward to the upcoming battle. If they could, they would never attack the woman on Duke Changsheng's back. Naturally, they would choose to confront Duke Changsheng face to face, even if they failed. This was a tribute to a true hero. Maybe I know who these people are. While everyone was still thinking about how they would fight against Wang Sheng, the leader of the Shi family suddenly said. Everyone's attention was once again drawn over. Everyone was extremely curious about the experts who had died at the hands of Wang Sheng, and they had been trying to guess their identities. All in all, they brought a total of 4 heavy sniper crossbows. The expert of the Shi family pointed to the heavy sniper crossbows that were placed side by side. I just checked them. They should be real heavy sniper crossbows, not small imitation heavy sniper crossbows. What does this mean? Brother Gon, do you still remember the price that the pavilion of Linglong offered for heavy sniper crossbows? 50 million gold coins for one. The leader of the Gon family answered quickly. This was not a secret. Many people knew what happened back then. The leader of the Shi family asked the leader of the Gon family next to him, but he didn't need to say it. Everyone else knew the answer in their hearts. 4 heavy sniper crossbows, 200 million gold coins. The leader of the Shi family smiled bitterly. Who can afford such expensive things? The leader of the Qiu family's eyes lit up. Li Zhenfang. As soon as he said this, he immediately realized that he had said something stupid, so he quickly added, and the royal family. In this world, only Li Zhenfang didn't care about 200 million gold coins. The leader of the Qiu family said it subconsciously, but it wasn't just him. Everyone else, including everyone else, didn't believe that people from Li Zhenfang would use heavy sniper crossbows against Wang Sheng. Everyone knew that Li Zhenfang was opened in the territory of the royal family. In the capital, it was impossible not to give face to the royal family. The royal family definitely had a part in Li Zhenfang. This could be seen from the fact that Qian Xingyuan's signboard was personally inscribed by the emperor. Moreover, the royal family had given the land to Runzi workshop. There was even an imperial edict that forbade men from entering. How could the royal family not have a part in it? The royal family had enough reasons to deal with Wang Sheng. Not to mention the huge profits of Li Zhenfang. There were already 4 or 5 princes who had died in Wang Sheng's hands, and more than 20 members of the royal family. Most of the confiscated property was sent to Duke Changsheng's residence. Wasn't this hatred? It's not the royal family. The leader of the Shi family shook his head. It's because the beauties around Duke Changsheng are too outstanding. Now the emperor wants to stuff all the princesses into Duke Changsheng's residence to win him over. How could he do such a stupid thing? Other than Li Zhenfang and the royal family, who else has such wealth? If it wasn't Li Zhenfang or the royal family, no one could afford to use 4 heavy sniper crossbows. The leader of the Qiu family frowned and asked, could it be those chain stores? Someone they secretly trained? Learned from Bao Qing Yutang? Do they want to die? The leader of the Qiu family's face turned cold as he said the last sentence. as if he was going to settle the score with those chain stores in the next moment. How dare they play this kind of trick under the eyes of the 8 families? Are they tired of living? It seemed that the incident with Bao Qing Yutang didn't teach those greedy guys a lesson. It wasn't only the Chiu family that thought this. The leaders of the other families didn't look good either, stirring up trouble behind the 8 families' backs, even killing Wang Sheng before the 8 families. It was obvious that they didn't care about the 8 families. If this kind of thing happened once, they would have to uproot them. Otherwise, how could the 8 families rule the world? I'm not sure if it's those chain stores, but there's actually another one that can use heavy sniper crossbows. The leader of the Shi family didn't think that the leader of the Chiu family's analysis was wrong, but he still added. Under everyone's questioning gazes, the leader of the Shi family gave his answer with a bitter smile. Linglong Pavilion. Linglong Pavilion, which makes heavy sniper crossbows, can definitely afford to use 4 heavy sniper crossbows, or a few more. Chapter 1446. That was right. Of course, the Pavilion of Delicacy could afford it. They had made it themselves, and it was said that Wang Sheng had bought the materials from the Pavilion of Delicacy. After deducting the profits from the materials and the crafting fees of the Great Grandmaster, the cost of the heavy sniper crossbow was at most 1/5 of the 50 million gold coins. They could get 4 or 5 heavy sniper crossbows for the price of 1 heavy sniper crossbow. Of course, they could afford it. Which one is it? There were so many suspects that they didn't know which one to suspect. They have more than 30 legendary masters. The leader of the Song family reminded them calmly. Some quick-witted people suddenly understood. Most of the 4 concerts in the capital were taken by the 8 big families and the royal family. With this reminder, the leader of the Xia clan quickly said, "The other small clans and forces have only received a small portion of the quota. The largest clan only has 20 legendary realm experts, and they have all shown their faces before. Where do they get 30 legendary realm experts that no one has ever seen before? Apart from Duke Changsheng, who else could make the Great Grandmaster Band perform in secret?" The leader of the Dai family immediately focused on the Great Grandmaster Band. Except for a few legendary masters, almost all of them had something to do with the Great Grandmaster Band. Without the help of the Great Grandmaster Band, no one could advance spontaneously. That was why, after reaching the legendary realm, many masters only had a stronger spiritual energy cultivation, but their fighting strength didn't increase much. More than 30 legendary masters that no one knew. It could only be said that the culprit had the ability to make the Great Grandmaster Band perform in secret. Considering this point, it seemed that all the suspicions were focused on the only possibility, the Pavilion of Delicacy. Apart from Wang Sheng and the master of the Pavilion of Delicacy, who else could make the Great Grandmaster Band perform? Wang Sheng was definitely not the mastermind, so the only one left was the master of the Pavilion of Delicacy. The answer seemed to be very clear. With this direction, they combined the things found on some people and the physical characteristics of those people. It didn't take long for them to reach a conclusion. These 53 people were obviously from the Pavilion of Delicacy. Most of them should be the most secretive group of great grandmasters who were in charge of coinage in the Pavilion of Delicacy. They just didn't know whether the mysterious master of the Pavilion of Delicacy was among them. How could the leaders of the families not know that the master of the Pavilion of Delicacy was just a decoration? Even the leaders of the big families didn't know who the real master of the Pavilion of Delicacy was, let alone them. However, at this moment, they really hoped that the mysterious Linglong Pavilion Master would die among these people. Unfortunately, no one knew the answer. Other than Wang Sheng, no one else would know that among these people was the exquisite Pavilion Master, whom they were particularly curious about. Our men have set up an inescapable net within a radius of 50 kilometers. The leader of the Feng family looked very calm. After everyone finished talking, he directly mentioned the business. If Lord Changsheng is injured and carries 2 women with him, I'm afraid he won't have the chance to leave 100 miles away. The Grandmaster of the Great is Grandmaster, the leader of the leaders said. Wang Grandmaster of the Great. The leaders of the Xia family, the Dai family, and the Gan family wished that Wang Sheng would die immediately. Therefore, They looked at each other and gave the order resolutely. This order didn't specifically target Wang Sheng. It referred to any outsider. This was in line with the previous agreement of the 8 big families. Even if other families objected, they couldn't say anything. Moreover, even if some of them had other intentions, they wouldn't show it at this moment. Indeed, Wang Sheng did not go more than 50 kilometers away. Given his current physical condition, being able to travel 10 kilometers with the 2 girls before the search team arrived was already his limit. The 2 girls couldn't move at all. One needed Wang Sheng to carry her on his back, and the other needed Wang Sheng to carry her. In the dense forest of the land of 1,000 extremes, they couldn't move fast at all. Moreover, Wang Sheng had to cover his tracks from time to time, which slowed them down even more. Fortunately, as long as Wang Sheng had enough spiritual energy, he could use the mantra of 9 syllables. While recuperating his body, he could also command the insects and demonic beasts in the land of 1,000 extremes. He didn't have to worry about these little things attacking him. Just like the 8 big families, Wang Sheng gave the insects and demonic beasts he passed through the same order. Apart from the 3 of them, they were to be killed without mercy. Song Yin wouldn't participate in the hunt. She would only unlock the seals in the underground space. That was obviously more important than hunting Wang Sheng. Therefore, Wang Sheng didn't have to worry about accidentally injuring Song Yin. Moreover, even if Song Yin really came, Wang Sheng wouldn't have to worry. Song Yin definitely wouldn't lack legendary guards. It would be a big joke if Song Yin could still be injured by some insects in the land of 1,000 extremes under the protection of legendary experts. That order was only used by Wang Sheng to slow down the speed of the experts who were chasing him. It couldn't possibly cause any substantial damage, but it could effectively hinder the pursuit and encirclement of the experts, and it could also give Wang Sheng an opportunity to escape. However, after all, there was no path in the dense forest. When Wang Sheng left with Aki in his arms, he still left traces that couldn't be completely erased. At least 40 people followed the traces he left behind with great difficulty. At the same time, the highest level of alarm had been sounded. The experts of the 8 big families surrounded the area almost without exception. Tell our people to act according to the circumstances. Remember, eldest misses instructions. The leader of the Song family knew that it was impossible for the Song family to stay out of this, but he still found an opportunity to pass his order to one of his subordinates. The leader of the Song family was not the only one who gave the order. Almost all the leaders of the 8 big families secretly gave the order, but the content was different. On average, there were 50 experts from each family. In a short period of time, more than 400 experts quickly rushed to this area from all directions, forming a dense encirclement 20 miles away from where Wang Sheng was. When everyone was in position, the encirclement began to shrink bit by bit, squeezing Wang Sheng's hiding space bit by bit. Wang Sheng had already realized that something was wrong. Although he didn't have the combat awareness of the little person, Wang Sheng's sensitive senses had already discovered that there were experts around him. After the people of the royal family left, it was the pavilion of delicacy. After the people of the pavilion of delicacy died, who was at this time? Wang Sheng simply stopped running away. He stood in a place where he could lean and rest, trying to recover a little more energy to face the upcoming battle. After resting for less than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Wang Sheng's face revealed a smile. There was actually a giant bear from the land of 1,000 extremes not far from here, and had just entered Wang Sheng's detection range. Chapter 1447. The giant bear in the core of the ground of 1,000 Despair was a huge monster that was 8 to 9 feet long and 4 to 5 feet tall. Each of them was at the peak of the 9th degree realm and was only 1 step away from entering the legendary realm. In terms of combat power, a giant bear could definitely fight evenly with a legendary master. There was no other reason. The current legendary experts only had the realm and spiritual chi cultivation, but they had yet to figure out the real combat methods. The strength they could display was only at the peak of the 9th stage, infinitely close to the legendary combat power, just like the old Imperial Elder in the past. Of course, the giant bear might not be a match for the three great ministers of the imperial family, and the result would be the same if it met Uncle Li and the old Taoist. These people had stayed in the legendary realm for at least a year and had much more experience than others. There was no shortcut to display real combat power. There was only one way, and that was to learn from battle. In this aspect, whether it was the three great ministers of the imperial family or the old Taoist Ling Su, they were much better. Relatively speaking, Uncle Li was surrounded by the three great ministers of the imperial family. Perhaps he was just a hair behind, but this guy had been in the legendary realm for a long time. Even if he only practiced a little every day, he would still be very strong. The giant bear's realm was not as high as many legendary masters, but it had always lived in the ground of thousand despair, a place of massacre. The instinct of a demon beast led to a life of constant killing, which made it incomparably strong. With its help, Wang Sheng could at least block the attacks of 10 legendary masters. If they cooperated well, coupled with Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow, Wang Sheng could easily kill his way out. Back when he was in the 9th degree realm, Wang Sheng could already control the giant bear. Now that the 7 words formula was more convenient, he could easily control the giant bear to meet up with him. As soon as they met, Wang Sheng found that the giant bear was no longer white. Like the snow rats and snow foxes, after entering the forest, it was no longer the protective color of the snow. Instead, it became a brownish-gray color that adapted to the forest, as if they could change their own color. Coincidentally, this giant bear was quite familiar. When Wang Sheng was in the glacier basin, it was the giant bear that brought the Sure and Gan families in and out. Without any effort, Wang Sheng carried Lin Ling and Aki on the back of the giant bear. With the giant bear leading the way, Wang Sheng didn't know how much energy he could save. To be on the safe side, Wang Sheng climbed up the giant bear's back and fed it 50 kilograms of 14th layer squid tentacles to help the giant bear increase its strength. To help the giant bear's strength, giant bear, and level. The giant bear was very happy. In the lands of thousand despair, the place was too big and dense with dense forests. The beasts it could hunt were only 6th or 7th degree realm demonic beasts. It was not as nourishing as it was in the glacier basin. The giant bear was very happy. It was used to living in the glacier basin where the spirit chi was abundant. The giant bear was not used to it when it first came out. Accustomed to living in the glacier basin with abundant spiritual chi, the giant bear was not used to it when it first came out. Now that it had finally gotten used to it, it suddenly took a bite, and the surging spiritual chi gushed out from the meat, almost making the giant bear explode. The incomparably comfortable feeling caused the huge bear to roar skywards. Wang Sheng, who was on its back, immediately sensed countless streams of spiritual energy converging on the huge bear's body. Just as squid whiskers made the giant bear at the peak of the 9th degree realm break through. This sudden change made Wang Sheng overjoyed. He just wanted to increase the giant bear's strength. Who knew that the giant bear was on the verge of breaking through? It was also Wang Sheng's luck. In the glacier basin, there was almost no food for the giant bear to improve. Therefore, it had been staying in this realm, infinitely close to the legendary realm, but still unable to break through. Over a squid 14th degree realm demonic beast meat allowed the giant bear to break through and successfully advance. However, the ecstasy only lasted for a moment. Wang Sheng smiled bitterly. Originally, he was relatively safe on the giant bear's back. But now, the aura of the giant bear's advancement would definitely attract the attention of the experts from the 8 great clans. A fierce battle was inevitable. The last time when Wang Sheng's flying mount was upgraded, Wang Sheng was observing from afar. But this time it was different. Wang Sheng was sitting directly on the giant bear's back. At the moment of breakthrough, Wang Sheng could even feel the finest hair on the giant bear king's back standing up like fine needles. Luckily, Wang Sheng's protective suit was outstanding enough, so he was not injured. The spirit chi that was almost comparable to when Wang Sheng broke through rose into the sky and gathered into a ball. It suddenly fell from the sky and was about to enter the giant bear's body. But what surprised Wang Sheng was that when this spirit chi reached the top of Wang Sheng's head, it suddenly turned and entered Lin Ling's body before entering the giant bear's body. Wang Sheng didn't know if this was Lin Ling's own control or a natural change of the spirit chi, but it wasn't a bad thing to have spirit chi enter the body. Especially when the giant bear was breaking through, the spirit chi would only nourish Lin Ling's body and not destroy it. The nourishing effect of the spirit chi was much better than Wang Sheng using the 7 words chant nonstop. Wang Sheng could rest assured and just focus on helping Aki. However, the spirit chi couldn't enter Aki's body to nourish it. Otherwise, Wang Sheng could save a lot of effort. The huge commotion here naturally attracted the attention of the masters of the 8 families. A few sensitive experts instantly realized that there was a demonic beast that was advancing in rank. If it was during normal times, they would definitely go and observe such a rare opportunity. Even if it was for research purposes, they would go and observe. However, everyone's priority now was to kill the outsider and Wang Sheng. The advancement of a spirit beast wasn't enough for the masters hunting Wang Sheng to give up their mission. The advancement of spirit beasts was different from humans. First, it didn't take as long as humans. It only lasted for 15 minutes, and the entire advancement process was over. Spirit beasts were like this. Their advancement was very fast. Their power needed to grow slowly over the next few months or even longer. It was completely different from humans. It was very in line with the way of nature. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had seen it last time, so they didn't find it strange at all. Wang Sheng just felt it was a pity. It wasn't easy for the giant bear to reach the legendary state, and no one disturbed it. If only it could last a few days like humans. Lin Ling's body would definitely be fully nourished. However, it was only 15 minutes. Although it was very beneficial to Lin Ling, it was still too short. Wait! Among the experts of the 8 great clans who were slowly shrinking the encirclement, one of the peerless experts suddenly realized that something was wrong. How could the demonic beasts advance at this exact moment? Chapter 1448. The expert who hadn't paid attention to it before suddenly realized what was going on immediately waved his hand and ordered the few people around him, head towards the advancing demonic beasts. After giving the order, the expert didn't forget to quickly send out a warning signal. In an instant, a series of echoing signals could be heard in the dense forest, one after another. Of course, Wang Sheng also heard these signals. In fact, at this point, the experts of the 8 great clans who were pursuing him no longer bothered to hide their whereabouts. They unscrupulously exposed their positions, as if they were waiting for Wang Sheng to find them. From these echoing signals, Wang Sheng instantly determined the situation around him. The encirclement of the 8 great clans was within 20 miles, but it was less than 10 miles, so Wang Sheng couldn't find out their specific positions for the time being. But the echoing signals also allowed Wang Sheng to understand which direction had the weakest manpower and which direction had the most experts. Without even thinking about it, Wang Sheng urged the bear to charge in the direction with the most number of people. With a total distance of less than 30 miles, with so many people, it would be best to rely on the giant bear's speed in the dense forest to quickly break out of the encirclement. The reason why he didn't break out of the encirclement in the direction with the least number of people was also a psychological tactic of Wang Sheng. On one hand, the enemy might deliberately reveal a flaw in a certain direction to lure Wang Sheng to break out of the encirclement in that direction. If Wang Sheng did so, he would definitely fall into their trap. On the other hand, breaking out of the encirclement in the direction with the most people would also catch them off guard. They certainly wouldn't expect Wang Sheng to go in that direction and would subconsciously relax a little. This would also be a good opportunity for Wang Sheng to escape. Wang Sheng led the 2 women forward in the dense forest of the place of Thousand Despair. Even with his extraordinary strength, he could only push away the vines bit by bit and chop away the branches of the shrubs that were blocking the way before he could find a way out. And this was under the condition that Wang Sheng's 9 secret words could control the insects so that they wouldn't harm him. The experts of the 8 great clans were in a much more difficult situation. Not only did they have to open a path like Wang Sheng, but they also had to constantly resist the various kinds of annoying insects. Wang Sheng had long since given the order to kill all the bugs in his path. Anyone else was to be killed without mercy. Those experts would constantly have a terrifying buzzing sound in their ears. From time to time, they would have to be careful of snakes, insects, rats, ants, and the like under their feet. Even if they used the spiritual energy of the legendary realm to protect their bodies and didn't have to worry about these things hurting them, the constant buzzing of those things in front of their eyes and ears was also very annoying. Therefore, the speed of the experts of the 8 great clans on the ground was almost the same as that of Wang Sheng. As long as Wang Sheng could break out of the encirclement, it wouldn't be that easy for those people to catch up to Wang Sheng. The giant bear's way of moving was obviously much rougher. To be more precise, it was simply like a bulldozer's unreasonable way of moving. With its huge body and powerful strength, anything that stood in its way was easily pushed away by it. Shrubs that were less than 2 feet tall were directly leaped over by him. As for those that were more than 2 feet tall, even if it was a huge tree that required one to hug it, they were all easily uprooted by him. After walking for a few li, Wang Sheng sensed the auras of those experts. They didn't have as wide a sensing range as Wang Sheng, nor were their senses as sharp as Wang Sheng's. When Wang Sheng found them, they hadn't found Wang Sheng yet. However, this advantage wouldn't last for long. If they kept going forward within 5 kilometers, the enemies would be able to find the 3 of them. If it was just Wang Sheng, it might be fine. He could completely hide his qi, but with the heavily injured Aki and the weak Lin Ling, they were like guiding lights. Just as Wang Sheng expected, there were the most signals in this direction, but now Wang Sheng only sensed a dozen or so people. If there weren't so few people in the beginning, then they must have moved to the direction with the least people after the signal, just now. Wang Sheng was curious how they could move so quickly. In the land of thousand despair, other than flying mounts, there didn't seem to be a better way to move quickly. The reason why Wang Sheng didn't use a glider was because he had shown himself in front of the Song family. Many people in the glacier lake should have seen him too, so he had to be careful. When there were only 6 or 7 kilometers between them, Wang Sheng told the bear to start charging. If they went any further, the enemies would notice them. By then, there wouldn't be the element of surprise. It was the best time to start charging now. In an instant, the bear turned into a high-speed bulldozer. Its 4 limbs propelled its huge body forward, rumbling all the way. No matter what it encountered in front, it would be smashed or broken by the bear's huge body, directly opening a path in the dense forest. With every step it took, the ground would tremble slightly. The distance of 6 or 7 kilometers was covered in less than 100 seconds after the bear started charging. With such a big movement, the dozen or so masters on the other side had already noticed something was wrong and became vigilant. However, they thought it was just Wang Sheng making a big movement, but when they suddenly sensed a giant bear, it was already quite close. Kill them. Facing danger, they didn't panic and rushed forward with their weapons. More than a dozen legendary masters couldn't handle a heavily injured Wang Sheng and a giant bear. The people behind them all rushed forward. Bang, bang, bang. Without any buffer, the 3 people at the front directly collided with the body of the giant bear, and then they were sent flying. The giant bear didn't use any huge claws or sharp teeth at all. It just charged forward in the most straightforward way possible. It didn't care about the weapons that the 3 experts were thrusting at it and directly rammed into them. The 3 long swords directly pierced into the fur of the giant bear, but they didn't penetrate too deep into the flesh. The 3 people were directly knocked away by the huge speed and mass of the giant bear. They were still in the air when they spat out a mouthful of blood. Out of the dozen or so experts that followed behind, only 2 managed to dodge. The rest were stunned by the giant bear's roar. In the next moment, the giant bear's huge claws descended from the sky, directly trampling the 2 unlucky fellows into meat patties. The others weren't much better. Although the claws didn't step on them, the huge body of the giant bear still hit them. Just like the first 3 people, more than a dozen people were directly sent flying. Only 2 masters who had taken a defensive position from the beginning were not affected, and their positions were not in the path of the giant bear. Seeing the giant bear rushing over quickly, the 2 of them, one on the left and one on the right, stabbed the giant bear's body from the side with their weapons until the hilt. Chapter 1449. On the body of the giant bear, there was already blood coming out from 4 places. 5 experts attacked it with their weapons, but only 4 of them were effective. The first 2 swords did not cause much damage to the giant bear. When it rushed up, its main defense was in front of its body, and the 2 legendary experts' weapons only pierced a foot into its body. For a giant bear that was nearly 10 feet long, this bit of depth was not enough. At most, it pierced a little more than the skin. Bleeding was bleeding, but the injury was not affected. But the 2 swords on the side were extremely ruthless. The giant bear had just advanced to the legendary realm, and had not yet been able to protect its whole body with a strong defense. The side of its body was still protected by the 9th degree realm, and it was pierced by the 2 legendary experts. Fortunately, the blade of the long sword was only 3 feet long. It pierced through the fur and fat of the giant bear, and also into a part of the muscle, but that was all. Other than bleeding a lot, the external injuries were not very serious. However, the spiritual energy attack of the 2 legendary experts directly penetrated the body of the giant bear through the long sword and went straight to the internal organs. The giant bear felt pain, and its body jerked violently. The expert on the right was still holding the long sword and wanted to continue attacking, but he did not expect the giant bear to turn so quickly, and his body was bitten into 2 with a crack. The expert on the other side was scared out of his wits. Without thinking, he gave up his weapon and kicked the body of the giant bear. Using the force of the recoil, he shot into the dense forest behind him and disappeared in an instant. But the next moment, a sharp warning came from the dense forest and directly spread for dozens of miles. The whole dense forest was instantly boiling, and countless experts jumped onto the canopy at this moment, stepped on the canopy, and quickly gathered in this direction. Of course, Wang Sheng saw this scene and was instantly stunned. Was this floating on water or flying on grass? These guys actually mastered such Qigong? Why didn't they use it before? Was it a technique that only legendary experts could master in the past few days? No wonder they showed no fear at the beginning, as if they could surround Wang Sheng at any time. Just as he was marveling, a small black duck rose in the distance. Wang Sheng's pupils suddenly shrank. That small black that was clearly seen by Wang Sheng, who had strengthened his eyesight twice through Qi-Wen transformation and Chao Feng transformation. It was simply a flying mount, and there were 6 experts on it, flying in this direction. Flying beasts were a specialty of the Shanghua land. Previously, a group of beast trainers surrendered to Wang Sheng with dozens of flying beasts, and then Wang Sheng settled them in Laojun Temple. For a period of time, the 8 great families had especially wanted to buy flying mounts and tame flying mounts. However, Mei had rejected them, and they had never succeeded. Now that a flying mount had appeared, could it be that the Laojun Temple had joined their side? Just as this thought surfaced in his mind, Wang Sheng shook his head. Mei would never betray him, and the Temple of Laojun would never sell the flying steeds for worldly wealth. In that case, the only explanation was that the 8 major clans had obtained it from the mountain climb land. After all, the Shi clan had delivered Zhu Xiaodong to Wang Sheng alive back then. With such strength, capturing a few beast tamers and flying mounts was nothing to them. Fortunately, Wang Sheng did not use the glider. Otherwise, in front of these flying demonic beasts, he would be a live target. The giant bear was still charging forward, but there were now many tails behind it. All the experts of the 8 great clans had been alerted. At this moment, they no longer concealed themselves and charged over with great momentum. At this time, the giant bear's advantage in speed turned into a disadvantage. Compared to the experts rushing over from the treetops, the giant bear's speed on the ground was significantly slower. Not to mention the giant bear, even Wang Sheng might not be able to escape from this kind of pursuit. Whoosh! A heavy sniper crossbow appeared in Wang Sheng's hand, and he fired an arrow into the sky. The experts who were chasing after Wang Sheng, who were now within a few li of him, all came to a halt. Then they turned around and dove into the treetops. Everyone knew that Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow was powerful. Although they were all legendary experts, no one wanted to face it head-on. It was better to hide first. Boom! An explosion came from the sky. Everyone looked up and saw that a flying demonic beast had flown too close and was shot by an arrow. The beast tamer was not from 8 major clans, but a beast tamer from the mountain climbland. He had forgotten that Wang Sheng still had the heavy sniper crossbow. Legendary experts might be able to resist it, but these flying demonic beasts were out of the question. With just one arrow, a flying mount was blown into pieces. The experts and beast tamer on its back were unlucky. Without their flying mounts in the air, they fell to the ground. Fortunately, the flying mounts were only 100 meters above the ground, and there was a large amount of dense forest below. The various branches and stumps could serve as a buffer. The 5 legendary masters forcefully took a deep breath and protected their bodies. One of them didn't forget to protect the beast tamer, and all of them crashed down together. Wang Sheng shook his head on the back of the giant bear. These guys were really bold. They actually dared to fly within his shooting range. If not them, who should he shoot? However, Wang Sheng also knew that the effect might not be very good. If those people were ordinary people, they would definitely be dead. Unfortunately, they were legendary experts. This was almost twice the height of Wang Sheng when he first came to this world. For those legendary experts, at most, they would be injured, but it would not be fatal. However, this arrow also reminded everyone that Wang Sheng still had such a super long-range trump card. Immediately, the experts on the flying demonic beasts did not dare to rashly approach. After a few moments, those experts simply let the flying demonic beasts lower their altitude. After catching up with their companions, they directly jumped off the back of the flying demonic beasts. Like the other experts, they stepped on the treetops and quickly chased after Wang Sheng. The giant bear was very fast. It did not take long for it to rush to a relatively open space. Wang Sheng controlled the giant bear to stop and waited here for those experts to arrive. Those experts had the qigong to move quickly on the treetops. The speed of the giant bear was no longer enough to shake them off. It was better to conserve energy and fight a group of them. Wang Sheng had already come down from the back of the giant bear. His back was against a mountain wall, so he did not have to worry about attacks from behind. At the same time, he used a set of 7 words formula of the fighting formula on the giant bear and quietly waited for the experts of the 8 big families to arrive. One after another, the experts of the 8 big families rushed over from all directions. The group that arrived first seemed to be very cautious. They only carefully sealed off a few of Wang Sheng's exits and quietly waited there. The group of experts that arrived later was unknown. However, it was obvious that they were very hostile towards Wang Sheng. 4 or 5 experts relied on their high cultivation. Once they arrived, they rushed over without thinking. Chapter 1450. From the moment someone jumped from the treetop, at least 4 people saw this scene and immediately became angry. Who did it? Who used that move? The leader of the Song family was the most furious. He was about to explode with rage. He shouted at the 2 leaders of the other families, who allowed them to use it. Calm down. The leaders of the Feng family and Dai family stood beside him. The leader of the Dai family had a faint smile on his face. He didn't seem to realize how serious this matter was. Aren't we here to kill? If there's a way to quickly surround the enemy, why don't we use it? Don't you think so? Old Feng. The leader of the Feng family didn't respond to the leader of the Dai family, but he wasn't as angry as the leader of the Song family. He only said calmly, someone did not follow the rules. Such a person should be killed. Eager to kill the enemy, but not to that extent, right? The leader of the Dai family raised his head and saw the flying mount being shot down by Wang Sheng. He couldn't help but frown. Even if there's an agreement, you can't just watch your own people die, right? Of course, everyone saw this scene. Speaking of which, all parties should be united against a common enemy. However, it was obvious that these leaders didn't have the same thoughts. Some looked incomparably angry, some were incomparably calm, and some were frowning. The legendary experts of the 8 great families had recently figured out a method to move quickly in the land of 1,000 extremities. It was to use the powerful spiritual energy in the treetops to resist one's own weight, and then use the elasticity of the branches to move forward quickly. Because they weren't careful while practicing, they were discovered by someone from another family. As a result, the other family immediately forced that family member to share this method. With this method, the safety and speed of traveling in the land of 1,000 extremities were greatly increased. Ordinary experts definitely wouldn't be able to escape from this method. However, just a day ago, the higher-ups of the various families had instructed everyone not to use this method for the time being. No matter who the enemy was, they were not to use this method for the time being. They would only use the normal method of pursuing on foot. When they received this order, everyone present didn't understand it. However, an order was an order, and they just had to carry it out. The leaders didn't know the reason either. The order had been given in a hurry, so they didn't understand it either. Now, it was clear that those fellows who were eager to get rid of Wang Sheng had finally lost their patience. Under the instructions of certain people, they had used this move. Almost immediately, they had surrounded Wang Sheng. Those who used this method weren't afraid that the higher-ups would look into it. With so many people from the 8 great families acting together and scattered so far, who could accurately pinpoint which expert used this method? In any case, when the time came, they would just casually push the blame onto someone else. And the result would be the same. As for Wang Sheng, they would just have it, and would be. This was also the reason why the Song clan's leader was so furious. He had no way of finding out which expert had broken the rules. However, the problem was that Wang Sheng was in deep trouble this time. The order the head of the Song family had received was to avoid meeting Wang Sheng as much as possible. If possible, let Wang Sheng go. Even if they were forced to fight with Wang Sheng, the Song family's experts would do their best to hide in the back. As long as the Song family was relatively close to Song Yin, they would know that Song Yin and Wang Sheng had a special relationship. Song Yin would never personally kill Wang Sheng. On this point, the higher-ups of the Song family had basically tacitly agreed. No one would dare to violate this rule. Now that this method was used, Wang Sheng would definitely be surrounded and unable to escape. Even if he had the help of a Legend Realm demon beast, he would definitely die in the face of more than 400 Legend Realm experts. Pig Brain. The Song family's leader looked at the complacent leader of the Dai family and couldn't help but curse. He didn't say anything else. Brother Song, why are you cursing? The leader of the Dai family, of course, heard this sentence. His expression immediately changed as he questioned the Song family's leader. Don't tell me you don't know what you found inside. The Song family's leader looked coldly at the Dai family's leader and said coldly. Along with the order from the higher-ups of the Song family, a simple notification was given only to the leaders of the team. It was very simple. Wang Sheng had taken away the number 1 expert of the Lin family from 500 years ago. In addition, there were also 24 experts from 500 years ago. Of course, the people here were not very clear about the specific situation. So what if I know? So what if I don't know? The Dai family's leader's expression changed slightly. Of course, he knew. He had even arranged for people to leak the trump card in advance in order to kill Wang Sheng. But speaking of the Song family's discovery, what did it have to do with Wang Sheng? Not only was the Dai family's leader puzzled, but the Feng family's leader was also puzzled. He was considered to be a neutral party. He didn't want to protect Wang Sheng, nor did he think about how to kill Wang Sheng. At this moment, from the tone of the Song family's leader, he couldn't help but ask sincerely, Brother Song, if you guessed anything, please give me some advice. 24 people. They can't all be experts from our 8 families, right? The leader of the Song family didn't hold back and just explained to the leader of the Feng family. Both of them nodded. That was for sure. 500 years ago, it wasn't just the 8 great clans that participated. It was just that the 8 great clans had the most survivors. Let's not talk about anything else. The aura of those experts could affect the land of Thousand Despair for hundreds of years. It's not something that people of our cultivation can do, right? The leader of the Song family looked at the leader of the Dai family and asked with a sneer. They nodded again. The two of them weren't stupid. Of course, they knew how terrifying an expert who could influence the lands of despair for hundreds of years was. Just one question. The leader of the Song family sneered at the leader of the Dai family and asked, if a few of the 24 experts have already been destroyed and they come out and are dissatisfied with the current situation, what do you plan to do? There are also experts from our clan inside. Of course we can deal with them. The Dai family's leader's expression changed instantly, but he still replied stubbornly. What if most of them aren't from the 8 great families? The leader of the Song family asked with a sneer. This time, the 2 leaders of the Dai family and the Feng family completely understood. Once that happened, the only one who could suppress those old fellows would be the #1 expert of the Lin family that Wang Sheng had brought with him. Sometimes, the most helpless thing for the higher-ups was to strike a balance. The reason why the higher-ups didn't allow them to use that move was probably because they wanted to slowly force Wang Sheng to reach a balance with Wang Sheng. As for how to convince the experts of the Lin family, that might be something that Wang Sheng or the higher-ups of each family had to consider. But now, the Dai family's decision to act on their own had completely forced Wang Sheng into a corner. In fact, they had also forced themselves into a corner. Chapter 1451. To the 8 great families, the secret of the ground of Thousand Despair was something they had to grasp. There was no doubt about it. However, according to Wang Sheng, if they wanted to grasp the secrets of the ground of Thousand Extremities, they would have to break the seals on those experts. Otherwise, they would only be able to look at the secrets of the ground of Thousand Extremities without being able to obtain them. Then, there was another problem. No one knew which clan the 24 sealed experts belonged to. If they were from the 8 great families, it would be fine. But if they were from other families, the 8 great families had annihilated many families and sects in the past 500 years. Who knew if they were enemies who had destroyed their families and sects? When Lin Ling came out, she was extremely weak, but the premise was that she had already fought with thousands of masters from each family before she was sealed. She was already very weak in the first place. However, the masters who were sealed voluntarily might not be the same. They might come out in their strongest state. What would the 8 great families do then? Although at the beginning, they could still delay because the other party didn't know the specific situation, but what would happen if they knew the truth? At this time, Lin Ling was actually the best target to divert attention. Those masters definitely didn't want to see Lin Ling recover. Even if they had a vendetta against the 8 great families, they had to get rid of Lin Ling first. Keeping Wang Sheng and Lin Ling was to give the families a buffer. The people from the 8 great families also firmly believed that there must be masters sealed in their families. As long as their masters were unsealed, everyone would be in a relatively safe environment. If those masters from other families cooperated, it would be fine. But if they didn't cooperate, the masters of the 8 great families could work together to suppress those guys. And what the 8 great families needed was to make sure that there wouldn't be any problems during this period of time when their masters were unsealed. Therefore, during this period of time, Wang Sheng couldn't die. Or more accurately, Lin Ling couldn't die. She had to be a target. This was the safest method that the 8 great clans' patriarchs and great elders could think of in such a short amount of time. Therefore, they immediately gave orders to their own experts in the lands of Thousand Despair to trap Wang Sheng step by step. They were even to go easy on him when necessary. As long as they kept Wang Sheng in a state where he could be dealt with at any time, it would be fine. When Wang Sheng told Song Yin those secrets, he had the same thought in mind. Wang Sheng's goal was simple. He wanted to stall for as much time as possible until Lin Ling could recover a bit. Then, Wang Sheng wouldn't have to worry about anything. But now, because of the Dai clan's leader's foolish behavior, The wishes of the 8 great clans' upper echelons had been dashed. So many people had surrounded Wang Sheng, and some of them had even died. Those experts didn't know what the upper echelons were thinking, so it would be strange if they didn't make a move. At the same time that 4 or 5 figures rushed over, the giant bear also roared and pounced towards the figures that were rushing over. Gotcha! Although the giant bear was huge, its agility was excellent. In a situation where there was no obstruction, it accurately bit down on an expert who was pouncing over from the air. Its mouth did not care that the opponent's weapon had already stabbed into its face, and with a single bite, it tore the opponent into 2. At the same time, the giant bear's claws slammed into another expert's body. That expert flew over and flew back at the same speed. Luckily, there were quite a lot of people behind him. 2 masters quickly flew up and caught his body. Even so, the 3 of them still flew back for tens of meters before the force dissipated. Then, they crashed into a tree and fell to the ground. However, the other 3 people used this opportunity to stab their weapons into the body of the giant bear. The left shoulder of the giant bear, which was close to its neck, was directly stabbed by a long spear that was almost 3 feet deep. The spirit chi carried by the long spear directly forced the giant bear to take 3 or 4 steps back and almost fell on its butt. The opponent reacted extremely quickly. After realizing that he couldn't kill the giant bear in one move, he immediately retreated without greed. The other 2 were a bit greedy. Their weapons were stabbed into the body of the giant bear, and they still wanted to use this opportunity to kill it. Their bodies were still hanging on their weapons. Just as they were about to attack with fierce spirit chi, the long hair of the giant bear stood up. Like countless sharp thorns, it pierced through their protective clothing and stabbed into their bodies. In an instant, the 2 masters who couldn't retreat in time became bloody gourds. There were hundreds and thousands of small wounds on their bodies. Their blood stained the fur of the giant bear. After struggling for a while, the 2 masters became 2 small ornaments hanging on the body of the giant bear. They couldn't move anymore. Wang Sheng couldn't fight side by side with the giant bear at this time. He could only use the 9 words formula to help the giant bear alleviate its injuries. It had to be said that the life force of the giant bear was much stronger than that of a human. With the stimulation of the 7 words formula, the wound that had just been pierced actually stopped bleeding rapidly. Even the weapons that had been pierced into its body seemed to be slowly squeezed out of its body by its muscles. That strange scene sent chills down the spines of the experts from the 8 super clans who were watching. Let our people retreat to the back slowly. Don't attack. After the leader of the Song family scolded the guy from the Dai family, he directly rushed to a place not far from the battlefield. From afar, he saw that Wang Sheng's giant bear had recovered after it attacked. He stood on the tree crown and looked at Wang Sheng and the other 2 behind the giant bear. He ordered decisively. The Song family had always been lagging behind. No matter how close the other families were, they were still in the middle and back of the team. At this moment, seeing the signal made by their own people, everyone quietly began to move. It seemed that they were looking for a more suitable opportunity to attack, but in fact, they were slowly falling to the back and could leave the battlefield at any time. Everyone's attention was attracted by the giant bear and Wang Sheng. The seemingly casual actions of the Song family masters didn't attract much attention. However, it wasn't that no one noticed. At least the leader of the Tang family silently watched the Song family fall behind. He pondered for a while and quietly gave an order to his subordinates. The Tang family and Wang Sheng didn't have such a good relationship, but the Tang family didn't have to kill Wang Sheng like the Dai family did. As long as Wang Sheng didn't break through the Tang family's side, the Tang family could stay put for the time being. They wouldn't take the initiative to attack, but they wouldn't take the initiative to let Wang Sheng go either. Everything had to wait and see. Compared with the Tang family and the Song family, the leader of the Dai family didn't have a good time. After being reminded by the leader of the Song family, he realized that he might have made a big mistake. As a last resort, he could only try to remedy it. Kill the bear, but keep Duke Changsheng and the others alive. After thinking for a while, the leader of the Dai family finally gave an order it's best to capture Duke Changsheng and the two women around him alive. Chapter 1452. Capturing Wang Sheng alive was the best solution that the leader of the Dai family could think of right now. What the higher-ups wanted was for Wang Sheng to come to a compromise with the 8 great clans, or rather, to come to a compromise before dealing with the 24 experts from the lands of Thousand Despair. In that case, wouldn't it be better to keep Wang Sheng alive and capture him alive? As for Aki and Linling, everyone could see that they couldn't even move or feel anything. As long as Wang Sheng surrendered, they could do whatever they wanted to him. In the Dai family's patriarch's opinion, as long as the various families could endure the period of unsealing and completely solve the problem of the 24 experts, the lives of Wang Sheng and that woman from the Lin family would most likely come to an end. If they could capture Wang Sheng alive, it would be his credit, as well as the credit of everyone present. He didn't believe that those people couldn't see it by now. Now that things had come to this, who dared not to help? Either everyone worked together to do this, or everyone died together. It was that simple. The leaders of the other families were thinking the same thing. Although they had cursed that bastard of a Dai family countless times in their hearts, they had no choice but to face the current predicament. Thinking about it, they could only let that bastard of the Dai family succeed and use this last solution. 20 people, go kill that bear together, the leader of the Feng family ordered angrily. The other families did the same. Each family sent out about 20 powerful beings. A group of people rushed up and surrounded the bear in a fan-shaped formation. Other than the army formula, which was mainly the man formula, Wang Sheng had also used the battle mantra, which was mainly the fighting formula, on the huge bear. He could not help the huge bear directly now, so he could only use this kind of support method. Wang Sheng could tell that the people from the 8 great clans didn't seem to want to kill him for the time being. However, he didn't know why they had to force him to this extent. Someone must have made a stupid mistake. The bear roared madly, and its huge body kept crashing. It waved its huge claws and slapped at the surrounding powerful beings. Every now and then, spiritual energy balls would shoot out of its gigantic mouth and explode accurately in the crowd. Since it was a matter of life and death, the giant bear also erupted with the craziest combat power. Boom, 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 boom. A series of explosions were mixed with the claw of the giant bear from time to time, which caused the entire ground to vibrate. This caused the people within a radius of 100 feet above the ground to instantly lose their balance and fall to the ground. Even the experts of the legendary realm couldn't resist this kind of spiritual attack of the giant bear and could only endure it. Those who were nimble would immediately rise to their feet as soon as they fell to the ground, and were able to dodge the huge bear's spiritual energy ball attack. Some strength-type experts who weren't agile enough were unlucky. They couldn't immediately get up after falling to the ground. If they were unlucky, they would either have to face the giant bear's claws descending from the sky, or the bear's huge body directly crushing them. In a short period of time, each of the more than 100 experts who rushed up fell at least 3 times. More than a dozen experts were crushed by the giant bear's body, and the huge weight directly made them vomit blood. 4 experts were directly smashed to death by the giant claw, and the spiritual energy balls exploded. More than 40 experts were either lightly or heavily injured. In a short period of time, more than 100 experts were actually firmly suppressed by the giant bear. Although more than a dozen people's weapons were also inserted into the body of the giant bear. But for the huge body of the giant bear, this kind of injury would at most cause some bleeding. Not far behind, Wang Sheng was constantly using the 7 words formula to help the giant bear recover and stop the bleeding. The spiritual energy vibration caused by the giant bear's claws hitting the ground also affected Wang Sheng. At this time, Wang Sheng realized how strong his ability of balance was after the transformation of the mocking wind. More than 100 experts on the opposite side would involuntarily fall to the ground every time, unless they happened to be not on the ground at that moment. But Wang Sheng's feet were standing on the ground, and he could easily stand by the adjustment of his muscles and spiritual energy. However, Wang Sheng did not have it easy either. The spiritual energy shockwave brought about by the giant bear's spiritual energy slap was very mysterious. Several different spiritual energy tugged at each other from several directions. Even a legendary expert would not be able to adapt to the feeling of being pulled by more than a dozen pairs of hands, and at the same time, more than a dozen vines entangling his feet. He could only fall to the ground. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Sheng had a high cultivation level in the Xing word formula and could clearly feel the direction of each wave of spirit qi, perhaps Wang Sheng would fall too. Now, Wang Sheng relied on the travel chant sensitivity and Xiao Feng metamorphosis's balance to release the same amount of spirit qi as the bear and counteract the bear's spirit qi. At the same time, the muscles on his legs and feet adjusted rapidly. Only then could he maintain the state of carrying Lin Ling. As for Aki, she was lying down and basically wasn't affected at all. After falling 4 or 5 times, the masters finally figured out a way to deal with it. As long as they accurately jumped up the moment the bear slammed down and didn't touch the ground, they could basically ensure they wouldn't fall. The giant bear was just a beast after all. Even with Wang Sheng's command, it couldn't last too long against more than 100 legendary rank masters who knew how to dodge its attacks. One weapon after another pierced into the bear's body. No matter how strong the bear was, no matter how strong Wang Sheng's 7-word formula was, they couldn't withstand this continuous damage. As more and more masters hit the bear, the resistance of the bear became weaker and weaker. Even so, more than 30 of the 100-plus experts had lost their lives. In addition, more than 30 of them had been injured. Only then did they manage to kill the giant bear. With a final roar, the huge bear's body finally collapsed. Almost all of its body was dyed red with blood. Not a single part seemed intact. The place where the huge bear had fallen happened to be able to see Wang Sheng. Of the 2 huge bear eyes, only one could see. It gave Wang Sheng one last glance before closing its eyes completely. Wang Sheng stood up straight. He held the Tiger Fong military knife in his hand. There was no joy or sorrow in his eyes. He just looked at the hundreds of enemies ahead, ready to charge out at any time. Duke Changsheng, surrender. The leader of the Dai family walked to the front of the team and said coldly to Wang Sheng, "You can't escape." "Then I'll try." Wang Sheng's face was determined. He was ready to die with the girl of his dreams. "Do you still have more smoke grenades?" A clear voice rang out beside Wang Sheng's ear. However, it was a familiar voice. Chapter 1453. The voice was very familiar. It should be Lin Ling's, but Wang Sheng heard another familiar feeling from it. That was the voice Wang Sheng had communicated with countless times in his dream. Whether it was the tone, or the content of her words, it clearly showed that the one speaking now was the girl in his dream who had communicated with Wang Sheng in his dream before. It was also the girl in his dream who asked him if he listened to some boring guy and wanted to kill her as soon as she came out of the ice pillar seal. He didn't dare to say anything else, but the only person who knew the name of the smoke bomb was definitely the girl in his dream. "Yes," Wang Sheng answered with certainty almost instantly. 2. At the same time, 2 remaining smoke bombs appeared in Wang Sheng's hands. The 2 smoke bombs that were used to scare Tianzi into saying they were poison bombs were held in Wang Sheng's hands. Without waiting for the girl behind him to say anything, Wang Sheng pulled the ring of the smoke grenade. Crack! 2 crisp sounds of a spring being primed rang out, and 2 clumps of yellow smoke instantly rose from Wang Sheng's hands. The reason it was yellow smoke and not white smoke was to give the enemy a strong psychological pressure when using it and make them think it was a poison bomb. On the other hand, when rushing to a safe area and preparing to evacuate, the yellow smoke was also a beacon for their helicopter. Obviously, the first goal was achieved. When the 2 clouds of yellow smoke suddenly came out of Wang Sheng's hands, all the masters of the 8 families who saw this scene were taken aback. The first thought that came to their minds was, this color, it was extremely poisonous. When the leader of the Dai family saw this, he wanted to curse out loud. No wonder Wang Sheng didn't seem to care. He didn't even show much sorrow when that huge bear was killed in front of him. So he had such a trump card. For some reason, no one else heard the conversation between the girl in the dream and Wang Sheng. Therefore, no one knew that Wang Sheng only had 2 smoke grenades in his hands and not the gas grenades they had imagined. If it was someone else, 2 poison gas bombs would not be so frightening. They were all legendary experts, and they could easily disperse the poisonous gas with a few palms of wind, not to mention that there were hundreds of experts here. If everyone worked together, no matter how powerful the poisonous gas was, it wouldn't be able to hurt them at all. However, this was under normal circumstances. What he meant was that everything here had nothing to do with Wang Sheng. Only then would all the experts here think that it was normal. Basically, it didn't matter which faction, sect, or clan it was, including the 8 great clans of the imperial family, the assassin organizations, and those small sects and clans. Everyone had a common understanding. No matter what it was, as long as Wang Sheng was involved, it would be no small matter. For example, an ordinary crossbow arrow was basically useless against a 6-stage realm expert. But Wang Sheng had created one for himself, and even a 9th-stage realm peak expert could be shot to death with 1 arrow. For example, those incredible tools that could allow Wang Sheng to fly, the motorcycle that could allow Wang Sheng to travel at high speed in the magma and mud, and those ordinary products from Linglong Pavilion that were sold at sky-high prices in Qianxin. Countless facts had proven that as long as it was something that Wang Sheng used, even if it was just the clothes he wore, he could make such a special protective suit. That year in Worry-Free City, the fire that couldn't be extinguished even by jumping into the water was still fresh in everyone's memory. So, how could the poisonous gas that Wang Sheng used be an ordinary poisonous gas? Perhaps just a little bit of it would cause the skin and flesh to melt. Don't think that Wang Sheng was fine with it. If anyone else touched it, it would be fatal. Everyone retreated at the same time. Wang Sheng took out 2 smoke bombs, and after spraying the yellow smoke in his hands for a while, he threw them directly to his left and right front. In just a dozen breaths' time, the open space was shrouded in yellow smoke. At this moment, it was a light breeze, and the yellow smoke began to blow towards the 8 big clans. After a while, the smoke blew into the dense forest. A few people couldn't dodge in time, and their bodies inevitably came into contact with the yellow smoke. Just when they were mentally prepared to be corroded by the poison, those few experts suddenly realized that the smoke didn't have any effect on them after coming into contact with it. In surprise, they immediately shouted, "This yellow smoke isn't poisonous." In an instant, all the experts were surprised. Hearing their companions' energetic voices, they stretched out their hands to give it a try, and indeed, it didn't have any effect. A few of the bolder ones saw that the little bugs in the dense forest were all fine and gathered their courage to take a breath. They immediately realized that the yellow smoke only looked scary, but it wasn't poisonous at all. If they had to say that it wasn't good, it was just a little suffocating and it wasn't a big problem. At this moment, everyone finally had the time to ponder, why did Wang Sheng use 2 things that weren't poisonous for? A few smart people already realized that in just a short while, everyone's vision was filled with yellow smoke. They couldn't see anything even a little further away. Just when everyone saw the yellow smoke retreat into the dense forest, Wang Sheng saw Lin Ling reach out a hand behind him and casually break off a chopstick-sized branch from a dry tree. "You can move." Wang Sheng was overjoyed. Just when he was about to untie his body suddenly loosened. The few straps he used to tie Lin Ling up all broke. He didn't know what method Lin Ling used, but Wang Sheng didn't feel any other movement. Just when Wang Sheng was dumbfounded, Lin Ling, who was unconscious just a moment ago, now stood before Wang Sheng. The surrounding yellow smoke set off Lin Ling's fluttering clothes. She was like a goddess in the mortal world. She tilted her head back, and Lin Ling's long hair fell to the back. After being trapped in the ice pillar formation for a few hundred years, these loose hair probably made Lin Ling uncomfortable. Under Wang Sheng's surprised and joyful gaze, Lin Ling held that chopstick-like branch in her right hand and easily flipped her long hair onto the branch. Before Wang Sheng could understand what Lin Ling was doing, Lin Ling's hand flipped nimbly, and that branch flipped a few times on her hair like a living thing. Her loose long hair was easily pulled into a bun by Lin Ling with one hand. No, to be exact, she just used that chopstick-like branch to pull her hair into a bun. Then Lin Ling just pushed gently, and that branch stabbed deep in her hair and came out from the other end. In the blink of an eye, the branch seemed to have become a hairpin, firmly holding Lin Ling's hair in place. She did all of this so easily, and it was an eye-opener for Wang Sheng, who had never seen a woman comb her hair. Chapter 1454. Seeing Lin Ling tie up her hair, Wang Sheng was surprised, but he also knew that this was a sign that Lin Ling was going to attack. Loose hair would be a burden, so he had to tie it up before attacking. Just when Wang Sheng was going to hand over the tiger-tooth military knife, Lin Ling smiled and shook her head. She casually broke off a 3-feet-long branch from the dead tree and shook it casually. All the branches fell off, leaving only the trunk straight. That idiot who wants to die is called Lin Ling. The girl in the dream held the branch and smiled playfully at Wang Sheng. She turned around and said, "I'm Lin Xiao." As she spoke, Lin Xiao's agile figure disappeared in the yellow smoke, leaving Wang Sheng standing there alone with the unconscious Aki. What was going on? Wang Sheng was completely bewildered. He was clearly carrying Lin Ling. How did it become Lin Xiao? But in the next moment, Wang Sheng immediately understood. It was very simple. Either the girl in the dream had a split personality, or there were two souls in one body. This wasn't so hard to understand for Wang Sheng, who came from modern Earth. A split personality was an illness. As for two souls, as long as one had seen Master Stephen Chow's journey to the West, who wouldn't understand Qing Xia and Zi Xia? In the instant that Lin Xiao turned around, Wang Sheng saw very clearly that her eyes suddenly turned the color of blood. However, this blood color only flickered for a moment and immediately returned to normal. If it wasn't for Wang Sheng's sharp eyes, he wouldn't be able to notice this in such a short time. Lin Ling, Lin Xiao, Zhongling, Yu Xiao, Wang Sheng said to himself, and then turned around to carry Aki. He then used the 9 words mantra to cover his and Aki's qi. When there were 3 of them, Wang Sheng was unable to conceal all 3 of their breaths. However, there were only 2 of them, and they had a mountain wall behind them. Wang Sheng put on a hard mask for Aki and used the 7 words formula to easily conceal their breathing sounds. He didn't dare to say anything else, but at the very least, no one would be able to hear the sound of Aqi's breathing from 200 feet away. The jungle was filled with yellow smoke. Lin Xiao had only entered the smoke for a few breaths of time when Wang Sheng heard the first scream. Then, the screams became background music, one after another, coming from all directions. There was a gap of 2 to 3 seconds between each sound, as if they were giving the murderer time to hurry on with his journey. Wang Sheng's hearing was amazing. Even in the dark of the night, Wang Sheng could still hear everyone's position. The screams that sounded now belonged to the experts of the 8 great clans that Wang Sheng had heard before. His excellent memory allowed Wang Sheng to distinguish who almost every different voice belonged to. Although he couldn't name them, Wang Sheng could completely match each specific expert. From the moment Lin Xiao took the branch and entered the smoke, or from the moment Lin Xiao asked Wang Sheng if there were any more smoke bombs, Wang Sheng had a premonition that all of this would happen. Now, as Wang Sheng expected, Lin Xiao, who had recovered, directly showed her peerless charm from 500 years ago in front of the experts of the 8 great clans. However, what was used to set off her peerless charm was the lives of the experts of the 8 great clans. A scream every 2 to 3 seconds also meant that the experts of the legendary realm from the 8 great clans were not even a match in front of Lin Xiao. When Wang Sheng's Xing character formula was displayed, he could almost perceive every movement of those experts. But Wang Sheng was unable to detect Lin Xiao in the slightest. Lin Xiao's figure, in the perception of Wang Sheng's 7 words formula, seemed to have already become an invisible person. At least, whether it was Wang Sheng's spiritual qi detection, 9 words formula detection, or even super strong hearing and smell, it was as if after Lin Xiao entered the smoke, they directly lost this person's existence. Wang Sheng was already like this. The feelings of those experts from the 8 great clans could be imagined. They probably did not even know who the enemy was. Some people with ulterior motives wanted to sneak over to Wang Sheng's side, but they had just touched a few steps in this direction when their throats were slit by an enemy who came out of nowhere. In Wang Sheng's perception, the experts from the 8 great clans in the smoke should have suddenly seen the enemy. But whether it was attacking or defending, the next moment they would either cover their throats, eyes, or a few other vulnerable spots on their bodies, or a few spots all at once. In short, as long as they encountered Lin Xiao, there were only 2 outcomes. The fatal spot would be attacked, or the other vulnerable spots would be attacked first, and then the fatal spot would be attacked. Of course, the final outcome was death. He did not know what technique Lin Xiao used, but these experts would definitely scream loudly before they died, even if their throats were attacked. Wang Sheng was very clear that this was Lin Xiao not forgetting to give psychological pressure to the other enemies during the attack. The screams of each of their companions could make the other enemies feel fear. The more screams they heard, the more they would have a psychological hint that the enemy opposite them was almost unbeatable. When Lin Xiao appeared in front of them, the combat power they could unleash would be even more limited. The technique Lin Xiao used was a typical psychological warfare technique that Wang Sheng had once communicated with Lin Xiao in his dream. Now that he saw Lin Xiao use it so skillfully, Wang Sheng had an indescribable feeling of closeness in his heart. This was the real girl in his dream. So the voice he heard at the beginning telling him to kill her was Lin Ling's, the sister who shared the same body as Lin Xiao or something else. Wang Sheng still did not know what the story was, but since Lin Xiao had already woken up, then Wang Sheng had all the time to wait for her to personally explain everything to him. The number of enemies that Wang Sheng could sense through the 7 words chant was decreasing. A preliminary estimate was that in about 15 minutes, at least 200 experts had died in Lin Xiao's hands. At this moment, there were only 2 lines of poetry in Wang Sheng's heart that could describe his feelings. 10 steps to kill a person, 1,000 miles unstoppable. Lin Xiao's massacre at this moment was clearly the best annotation of these 2 lines of poetry. The smoke emitted by the smoke bomb had already been slowly blown away by the breeze. Following the screams, by now, Wang Sheng could no longer hear any other sounds. After another moment, Wang Sheng could not even hear the screams anymore. In Wang Sheng's perception range, other than himself and Aki, there was no other living existence. Hundreds of experts from the 8 families had actually all died in one attack from Lin Xiao. Finally, Wang Sheng heard a series of stumbling footsteps. That familiar feeling made Wang Sheng immediately rush out without a care. That was Lin Xiao's footsteps. The instant she saw Wang Sheng, Lin Xiao's pale face flushed red. She forced a smile at Wang Sheng, and her body went limp, directly falling into Wang Sheng's arms. At the same time, the branch in her hand that was stained with blood also turned into ashes at this instant. Chapter 1455. Wang Sheng's big hand caught Lin Xiao's slender waist in time and held her limp body in his arms. Looking at the familiar liveliness in Lin Xiao's eyes, Wang Sheng could conclude that the person in front of him was still Lin Xiao and not Lin Ling. Sorry. The bit of spirit chi I just absorbed was only enough for me to hold on for so long. Lin Xiao seemed to enjoy lying in Wang Sheng's arms and closed her eyes comfortably. She said to Wang Sheng apologetically, "Dozens of them ran away. I don't have the strength to chase." "Let them run then." Wang Sheng's heart was about to explode with joy. Lin Xiao was fine and could appear in front of him so domineeringly and lie so docilely in his arms. This simply made Wang Sheng overjoyed. Moreover, Wang Sheng could tell that those who ran away were basically the Song family and more than 10 Tang family members. The rest had all been killed by Lin Xiao alone with a wither branch. Even if he couldn't see Lin Xiao's actions at that time and couldn't feel the spirit chi, Wang Sheng could completely imagine it. Lin Xiao, with her fluttering clothes, appeared from the yellow smoke like an otherworldly fairy. Before those legendary masters were ready to counterattack, she easily pierced their throats with a withered branch. If Wang Sheng really had to describe this scene, Wang Sheng couldn't find a suitable adjective. Perhaps the entire process was like in Mr. Jin Yang's novel The Sword of the Yu Maiden on Earth, where Qing single-handedly used a bamboo stick to kill 3,000 Yu soldiers. Other than this, Wang Sheng couldn't think of any other scene. Originally thinking that he would die, Wang Sheng had already prepared for the worst. When he was exhausted, he would detonate all the explosives he had on him and die with the girl in his dreams, Aki dragging the enemy down with him. Because of Lin Xiu's actions, he no longer had to worry. The 7-word formula was once again sprinkled on Lin Xiu's body as though it was free. When she finally woke up, Wang Sheng had countless things he wanted to say to Lin Xiu, as well as countless questions he wanted to ask her. He was afraid that she would once again fall into a deep sleep due to the exhaustion. Holding Lin Xiu's slender waist, Wang Sheng first brought Lin Xiu back to the side of the mountain wall. He helped her sit down and rest for a while, but he tied the unconscious Aki on his back. Lin Xiu kept watching Wang Sheng's movements and did not ask why. There was a silent, tacit understanding between the two of them. They both knew that they couldn't stay here for long. They should leave first. With the corpses of over 300 experts, Wang Sheng could not be bothered to collect the spoils of war. With a whistle, countless insects swarmed towards the corpses in a frenzy. If the reinforcements from the 8 great clans had arrived just a little later, not even bones would have been left for them. Holding on to Lin Xiu and carrying Aki on his back, Wang Sheng and the other two began to leave in a certain direction. Wang Sheng did not deliberately choose a direction either. They should leave first. The sober Lin Xiu compared to the unconscious Lin Xiu was a world of difference. At least in terms of body recovery, there was already no need for Wang Sheng's 7-word formula to lead. Instead, Lin Xiu slowly mobilized the spiritual energy in her body, and the 7-word formula became a support. However, Lin Xiu's body was seriously too weak. As a result, the spiritual energy that she could muster now was only slightly better than an ordinary person. That was all. The only thing that made Wang Sheng gratified was that she could actively guide spiritual energy and was no longer passively receiving it. This way, the efficiency was also much higher. Of course, Wang Sheng did not forget to give Lin Xiu a few nourishing medicinal pills. Every bit of recovery was a bit. How's your body now? How long do you need to recover? Supporting Lin Xiu and walking for a while, Wang Sheng was already convinced that this was really that girl that he often saw in his dreams on Earth. The way she moved was almost exactly the same as Wang Sheng's. Even at this moment, she was borrowing Wang Sheng's strength to walk, which was also the military's way. The battle back then consumed too much energy. For hundreds of years, I only raised my realm but didn't nourish my body. Recovering isn't something that can be done in a month or two. Lin Xiu did not hide anything from Wang Sheng and answered directly. In the best situation, with all kinds of spirit medicine, a brilliant recovery array formation, and with the assistance of experts, I can more or less recover in a year to a year and a half. What spirit medicine and array formation do you need? What kind of experts do you need? I'll help you prepare them. Wang Sheng asked Lin Xiu without hesitation. As long as it could let Lin Xiu recover, what did these things count as? Wang Sheng did not believe that with tens of billions of gold coins, what could not be smashed out? Aren't you the world's public enemy now? After Lin Xiu finished listening, she panted a few times and could not help but laugh. Which expert dares to help you publicly? How do you know? Wang Sheng could not help but be stunned. Could it be that these were not things that happened outside the land of 1,000 despair? How did Lin Xiu know? Because I was the world's public enemy several hundred years ago. Lin Xiu did not need to explain much at all. You brought me along, together with me. Then you must be the world's public enemy too. Maybe. Wang Sheng nodded with a bitter smile, but a few faces still flashed in his mind. But not all of them. There's always those few people who won't make a move against me. Looks like they're doing that little bit better than you back then. Ha ha ha. Lin Xiu burst into laughter without any scruples in the manner of a virtuous lady. After laughing a few times, she felt that her breathing could not keep up and could only carefully hold back her laughter. Wang Sheng also hurriedly threw a 7-word formula over to help Lin Xiu calm down. How ironic. Lin Xiu calmed down after a while and said with a bitter smile, I also didn't expect that there would be a day where even laughing a few times is strenuous for me. It'll be fine. Wang Sheng comforted in a gentle voice. As long as you're alive, everything will be fine. That's right. Lin Xiu also felt something in her heart. Her small face gently leaned on Wang Sheng's chest. I can finally lean in your arms. How comfortable. Wang Sheng's arm tightened slightly, giving Lin Xiu a safe and warm feeling. There was an indescribable sense of peace and joy in his heart. He only felt that everything he experienced previously was all worth it. The two of them seemed to enjoy the joy of this kind of tacit understanding. Neither of them spoke, just quietly leaning on each other and enjoying it. The current Lin Xiu was not that peerless expert who could kill a person in 10 steps. She was just a little woman in Wang Sheng's arms. After a long time, Wang Sheng finally smiled and said in a low voice, For this day, I came to this world and waited for several years. I can finally hold you in my arms. I've waited in the icicle for almost 500 years. Lin Xiu also smiled. Luckily, I can concentrate on cultivating. Time also passes very quickly. You've always been awake in the icicle? Wang Sheng realized a problem and hurriedly asked, You even know that the Shi clan took away the Fengxiang mental cultivation method. You can feel everything that happened in there? Only the innermost region. Lin Xiu smiled and replied, It's the region that's sunken. That place used to be a plain. Do you know how that big sunken area appeared? Chapter 1456. How could Wang Xing know how the glacier basin appeared? When he came here, it was already 500 years later. So, Wang Sheng could only shake his head. After shaking his head, Wang Xing asked cooperatively, How did it appear? At that time, after I finished setting up the 25 sealing formations inside and sealed myself, I thought it would be great if you could be there. Lin Xiu also replied with a face full of confusion. I just had that thought, and that area suddenly started to sink and became that shape. Wait. Wang Sheng hurriedly stopped Lin Xiu's words. You mean you wanted me to come here? So I came? Wang Sheng suddenly came to this world when he parachuted on Earth. This couldn't be explained at all, just like how Wang Sheng couldn't explain why Lin Xiu appeared in his dream and could communicate with him. It was simply a matter of two different space-time, but he didn't know why they were mixed together. Maybe. Lin Xiu smiled slyly. I don't know either. Anyway, I thought it would be great if you could be here, but a few hundred years later, you came. Although this wasn't an explanation, Wang Sheng still reluctantly accepted it. He was able to come to this source soul world because of the girl in his dream, after all. Lin Xiu definitely didn't have the ability to transfer space-time, but there seemed to be a force maintaining the two of them, using the price of a glacier basin terrain change to bring him from Earth to this world. As for the more profound knowledge about space-time changes, the concept of quantization, and so on, Wang Sheng didn't care at all. Since it was heaven's will that allowed him to come to the world of the girl in his dream, that was enough. Then, what's going on with you and Lin Ling? Wang Sheng didn't ask about this. He believed that Lin Xiu wouldn't be able to answer him, so he asked about the relationship between Lin Ling and Lin Xiu. That's it. Lin Xiu had a helpless expression. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's her. When fighting, it's mostly me, and usually it's mostly her. However, when communicating with you in your dream, it's always me. She knows you, but she has never seen you in a dream. Typical two souls in one body, or two personalities. Wang Sheng didn't investigate how this appeared. I'm just curious. Can you control it when you appear? For example, you can appear whenever you want? Wang Sheng asked again. Usually, I can appear when I want to. Lin Xiu said proudly. However, it's boring to come out most of the time. I might as well go back and carefully ponder over my cultivation. Lin Ling's cultivation level isn't high. Wang Sheng asked. She didn't feel like a master at all when she appeared. She didn't even have spirit qi. She's about the same as me. Sometimes she's smarter than me and can think more. Most of the things in cultivation are actually shared by us. Lin Xiao directly shook her head and answered Wang Sheng's question. It's true that she's usually soft-hearted, but later on, she seemed to have suddenly become a fool for some reason, always saying some inexplicable things. She was the one who told you to kill me at the beginning. Lin Ling was actually a master on the same level as Lin Xiao, and she was even smarter than Lin Xiao before. Wang Sheng thought about Lin Ling, who showed no signs of cultivation at all, and couldn't imagine why. She was really stupid in the later stages. She felt that it was because of her that the Lin family was destroyed and killed so many people. It was as if she suddenly had an epiphany and wanted to atone for her sins. Lin Xiao sighed and still shook her head. She probably had this thought in mind when she told you to kill her. She was soft-hearted. Because many people died in annihilating the Lin family, she felt that she caused all of this. She felt guilty and wanted to commit suicide to atone for her sins. Wang Sheng listened to Lin Xiao's words and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Wasn't this the personality of those saints on earth? He didn't expect there to be one in the source soul world, and it was Lin Ling who shared 2 souls with the girl in his dream. Then, you must look after her. Don't let her commit suicide. Wang Sheng didn't know how to solve it at the moment, so he could only tell Lin Xiao to be careful. If Lin Ling succeeded in committing suicide, wouldn't Lin Xiao have to die with her? That wouldn't do. Don't worry, I'll be careful. Of course, Lin Xiao wouldn't want to be dragged to death by Lin Ling. As long as she had enough power, she would control the initiative. By the way, what happened back then? Wang Sheng couldn't help but be curious. Every family had their own version of what happened back then, but whether it was the 8 major families, the imperial family, or those small families, everyone said it was the Lin family's fault. There were probably many secrets behind this. Also, with your cultivation level, how could you be forced by them to seal yourself to this extent back then? Wang Sheng asked in confusion. Just now, Lin Xiao killed more than 300 legendary masters in 15 minutes. With such cultivation level, how could she have easily killed the invading enemies 500 years ago? What happened back then? Lin Xiao smiled and shook her head. I'm focused on cultivation, and Lin Ling doesn't like to meddle in other people's business. Some prodigal sons of the Lin family are using our names to do whatever they want outside. They deserve to be attacked. From Lin Xiao's words, Wang Sheng could tell that Lin Xiao actually didn't have any sense of belonging to the Lin family back then. This was no wonder. She was from a side branch of the Lin family, and she was a mediocre essence soul cultivator since she was young. Who would look her in the eye? Not taking the initiative to bully her was already the Lin family's generosity. But listening to Lin Xiao's words, before she became a peerless master, she must have been bullied and humiliated by the Lin family. Otherwise, she wouldn't say deserved. If they want to kill me, then kill them. I don't care. My parents and grandparents died a long time ago. What does the death of those Lin family members have to do with me? Lin Xiao clearly had this indifferent mentality. Originally, I was planning to watch from the sidelines. As long as those guys don't provoke me, I can't be bothered with them. But in the end, they ganged up to attack you and didn't give you a chance to explain at all, right? Wang Sheng could already imagine what happened later and said it for Lin Xiao. Yes. Lin Xiao didn't hesitate at all and quickly replied, they insisted on killing me. Then, I can't just wait to die, right? Later on, that happened. Wang Sheng didn't even know how to describe the feelings of the masters from various families who besieged the Lin family back then. If they knew that as long as they didn't take the initiative to attack Lin Xiao wouldn't care about the life and death of the Lin family at all, would they still make a move? But thinking about it, Wang Sheng also understood. No matter what Lin Xiao thought, those guys would definitely be overly suspicious. Unless Lin Xiao died, otherwise, how could they possibly believe that Lin Xiao would not care about this kind of family annihilation thing at all? Judging others by oneself, as well as the sorrow of both sides not communicating well. Chapter 1457. Wang Sheng didn't lament for too long, as he was immediately attracted by another question. It said that only 2,000 plus experts who surrounded you then died, and they were all only 6th-stage realm and above. Wang Sheng asked puzzledly, "If you had your current cultivation..." Towards the end, Wang Sheng dragged out the last syllable as he believed that Lin Xiao would definitely understand what he didn't say. If Lin Xiao had her current cultivation, not to mention killing 2,000 plus ordinary experts, even if it was double, so what? Why did she have to end up in a situation where she had to seal herself? My cultivation realm then was merely at the peak of legendary realm. Lin Xiao, of course, could hear Wang Sheng's doubts as she explained very easily. Among those fellows who died just now, I couldn't beat any one of them. Thinking about it, it was normal. If Lin Ling and Lin Xiao were already at such a high realm back then, all parties weren't fools, so how could they possibly not record down an even higher cultivation realm? It could only be said that even Lin Ling and Lin Xiao didn't exceed that limit back then. 9th-stage realm is no longer legendary realm now. Wang Sheng smiled as he explained a new concept to Lin Xiao. Now, 10th-stage realm is legendary realm, and 11th-stage realm is called epic realm, which was just redefined not long ago. 10th-stage realm still has the cheek to call it legendary realm? Lin Xiao shook her head in disdain and didn't linger on this question as she continued to explain. The sealing array isn't a restriction, but an array to stimulate cultivation. Other than being able to borrow ice to preserve the body, it's even more about borrowing the power of heaven and earth to cultivate and comprehend. Wang Sheng nodded his head as this was reasonable. Otherwise, based on Lin Xiao's character, even if she felt that she couldn't win, how would she possibly use self-restriction method to survive? Although he didn't have much contact with Lin Xiao, but Wang Sheng could be considered as the one who understood Lin Xiao's character the best. It's been hard on you. Wang Sheng stretched out his hand and stroked Lin Xiao's hair. The bun, which was pinned by a dead branch as a hairpin, still didn't go out of shape. When Wang Sheng touched it, Lin Xiao subconsciously evaded. "Don't touch, it's oily." A woman would always be a woman. Even in such a situation, she still didn't want a man to see her most embarrassing side. Wang Sheng did not understand this kind of mentality, but he understood it. Therefore, his hand moved down slightly and wrapped around Lin Xiao's shoulder. He gently tightened his grip, expressing his intimacy. "I've been cultivating all this time, so I don't find it very difficult." Lin Xiao felt very sweet in her heart, especially when Wang Sheng changed his position. It made her feel respected. Even though in the later years of the Lin family, those fellows could not wait to worship her, but Lin Xiao had never looked them in the eye, let alone felt that they were respected. Did they deserve it? 25 sealing arrays. All of them have the same effect? Wang Sheng asked in confusion. More or less. Lin Xiao gave an affirmative answer. However, 25 array formations can form a large array formation that can absorb the power of heaven and earth, allowing me to know what's happening outside. The other 24 can't. How did you get them to choose their strongest experts to enter those sealing formations? This was something that Wang Sheng could not understand. Could it be that Lin Xiao would tell them that this was an array formation that could raise cultivation? Even if Lin Xiao said it, those fellows had to believe it too. It was originally set up with reference to a suppression array formation. I modified it slightly. At that time, with those fellows' knowledge and cultivation, they couldn't tell at all. Lin Xiao still did not change her disdain towards the various experts. Moreover, I even left enough bait near those 24 array formations. I'm not afraid that they won't go in. It's the secret of the 1,000 extremities that they've been trying to figure out now. Wang Sheng recalled what those people claimed to be guarding and could not help laughing. Lin Xiao already knew the concept of the 1,000 extremities now. Hearing that, she smiled and nodded. She buried her head in Wang Sheng's arms and let Wang Sheng bring her away. How comfortable. Then what on earth did you set up? Wang Sheng also became curious. Something that could attract so many experts should not be ordinary, right? You guess. Lin Xiao became mischievous at this time. She did not say it herself, but forced Wang Sheng to guess. If Lin Xiao wanted him to guess, then it must be something that he knew. Wang Sheng was stunned for a moment. Then his mind began to turn wildly. guessing something related to the 24 array formations. After pondering for a while, Wang Sheng did not get a clue and could only guess and ask, "Is it related to me?" "Yes." Lin Xiu liked this kind of guessing game and directly gave Wang Sheng an affirmative answer. If it was related to him, then it must be something from Earth or something like a story that he had told Lin Xiu. If it was related to cultivation, then it must be related to those martial arts novels or fantasy novels. In his dream, in order to stimulate Lin Xiu to improve her cultivation, Wang Sheng did not know how many cultivation stories he had told her. 24 ceiling array formations guarding 24 things related to cultivation. This scene seemed somewhat familiar. In an instant, Wang Sheng's mind flashed through the martial arts novels that he had read and told Lin Xiu, and he suddenly thought of a possibility. It can't be. Wang Sheng wiped the non-existent cold sweat on his head and looked down at Lin Xiu, who was smiling like a little fox. He could not help but pat his head and have a headache. "You wouldn't have gotten those 24 stone rooms out, right?" Wang Sheng looked down and confirmed with Lin Xiu. "Of course." Lin Xiu smiled very proudly and asked Wang Sheng with a smile that seemed to be showing off, "Can I?" They believe it too? Wang Sheng could not understand the thoughts of those masters. Did they not verify the authenticity of those things when they saw them? Of course. Lin Xiu became more and more proud, and that feeling of scheming became more and more obvious. Lin Ling used 3 years to set up those things. We have carefully studied the things written on it. The first half is our real cultivation understanding, and the second half is some ideas that we need to verify engraved on it. When they saw it, it was like they got a treasure. Even if you whipped them, they wouldn't be driven away. "What about the poems?" Wang Sheng asked again. "Have you guys copied the poems?" "Of course." Lin Xiu replied very happily. "Every sentence is engraved completely, including those annotations. Our various cultivation conjectures are also integrated on it. As long as they cultivate, we will be able to sense their cultivation state, and then verify if our cultivation ideas are right or wrong, so that we can revise our direction at any time. For me to be able to cultivate from the 9th stage realm peak to my current realm, their contributions actually cannot go unnoticed." Hearing Lin Xiu's weak but extremely happy words, Wang Sheng did not know how to grieve for the masters from the various families. Something that Lin Ling and Lin Xiu forged herself, but they treated it like a treasure, willingly becoming cannon fodder for Lin Ling and Lin Xiu's cultivation. How miserable was this? Chapter 1458. The 24 specially built stone rooms were, of course, the story of Journey of Gallantry that Wang Sheng had told Lin Xiu in her dreams. In each stone room, there was a verse and a large illustration about the verse. Together, it was the complete verse of Li Bai's Journey of Gallantry. The last stone room was filled with the hoary head supreme mystery sutra in tadpole script. In the novel of Journey of Gallantry, the countless people who went to the Island of Heroes to drink the laba kanji and study the martial arts of Journey of Gallantry were all crippled. In the end, it was Shi Patian, who was illiterate, who used words as a painting to uncover the secrets of the Island of Heroes. Lin Ling and Lin Xiu were inspired by a story he had told them, and then created 24 stone rooms of the Island of Heroes in the core area of the Land of 1,000 Despair, where the Lin family used to be. To think that they could think of this. Lin Ling and Lin Xiu's cultivation insights back then could be said to be unparalleled in the world, especially the insights in the first half of each stone room. It would be strange if the masters of the various families did not see it as a treasure. Perhaps because of the ownership of these stone rooms, the various families killed each other. At least 400 people died fighting for these stone chambers. Lin Xiu seemed to have guessed Wang Sheng's thoughts. Before Wang Sheng could ask, she took the initiative to say this. Wang Sheng suddenly realized that he no longer felt sad for the various families. In the end, the reason why these people were unlucky was all because of him. Because Wang Sheng had told Lin Xiu the story of Journey of Gallantry, they became stepping stones for Lin Xiu's cultivation. Are there only these 24 stone rooms? Wang Sheng slapped his forehead and gave Aki another 7-word formula before asking Lin Xiu again. There's also a jade cave. Lin Xiu was not afraid that Wang Sheng would be shocked if he knew too much. She giggled and told him about her other arrangement. However, it was in the place where we used to live. There are all sorts of scrolls inside. Later, 2 families rushed in and discovered it. After the 2 families killed many of their people, they realized that they could no longer hide the news. So the 2 families joined forces and secretly moved all the things away. A few black lines appeared on Wang Sheng's head again. Why were these things that Lin Xiu said so familiar? Of course, Wang Sheng knew about the Jade Cave. It was a scene in Master Jin's other novel, Demigods and Semi-Devils, where Duan Yu learned the wave-like subtle steps. The cultivation manuals of the various clans should have been kept there. Later on, Madame Wang moved them to Gusu's Muron clan. He didn't expect Lin Xiu to learn this as well. Was there a need to ask if it could be kept at Linling and Lin Xiu's place? It must be something good. It would be strange if those guys didn't start a fight after they found out. What did you put inside? Wang Sheng asked with a bitter smile. It was yet another huge black pot that he couldn't shake off. I put some messy secret manuals. In addition, I also put 2 of our personal items. Those 2 items can sense my aura at close range. The smile on Lin Xiu's face grew wider and wider. She almost collapsed into Wang Sheng's arms. Wang Sheng had a hard time supporting her so that she wouldn't collapse to the ground. There are also a few secret manuals that we've cultivated before. They're secret manuals that we've really cultivated before. Why did these things sound so familiar? They were getting more and more familiar. Wang Sheng lowered his head and looked at Lin Xiu, who was panting a little from talking and walking. He used the 7-word formula on her to make her feel a little better. Only then did an indescribable expression appear on his face again. Lin Xiu wanted to laugh when she saw Wang Sheng's expression, but she didn't dare to laugh. She just laughed lightly, but her eyes were indescribably playful and cute. Don't tell me that there's the phoenix soaring mantra and the military killing technique inside. From Lin Xiu's gaze, Wang Sheng knew that he must have fallen deep into it. He braced himself and asked, "There's also a broken golden hairpin and a mediocre longsword." "Of course," Lin Xiu replied seriously. "When you brought those people to dig that place out, I was worried that you wouldn't find the golden hairpin and longsword I left behind. It was indeed a peerless treasure." Wang Sheng groaned his heart. He didn't even know how to describe his feelings. There were so many scrolls inside. They were indeed moved from Lin Xiu's place. Needless to ask, the Shi clan and the Gan clan were the 2 clans that fought each other in the beginning. Later, they couldn't eliminate each other and could only share. Perhaps because they were pressed for time, they left behind a peerless treasure map for their descendants. The descendants of the 2 clans each held half. In the end, after the land of 1,000 despair was sealed, neither clan could enter. They could only wait for Wang Sheng's arrival a few hundred years later to slowly unravel the secret of the peerless treasure map. The gems, gold, beast skins, weapons, and so on were probably plundered from the Lin clan by the 2 clans. They couldn't care about moving them and directly put them together with Lin Xiu's Jade Cave secret manual. Perhaps the Shi clan discovered the Phoenix Ascension Heart Sutra at that time, but didn't dare to do anything under the surveillance of the Gan clan. However, they recorded the news for their descendants to retrieve. Wang Sheng obtained the military killing technique, golden hairpin, and longsword. This basically took away 3/4 of the most valuable things that Lin Ling and Lin Xiu intentionally left behind. Only the Phoenix Ascension Heart Sutra was taken by the Shi clan. But without the Phoenix Origin Soul, even if they took it away, it would be trash. The aura I felt in the golden hairpin and long sword wasn't yours. Wang Sheng recalled the feeling at that time and couldn't help but say, "That's Lin Ling, that fool." Lin Xiu replied with dissatisfaction. Only she would think of bringing cultivation comprehension into her daily life. I hope to use the military killing technique to the extreme. All right. Wang Sheng recalled the appearance of the combing woman. There was indeed Lin Ling's shadow. She was so quiet, not such a mischievous Lin Xiao. Speaking of which, you were also known as the #1 expert in the world back then. Wang Sheng was very confused. The golden hairpin can be said to have been damaged in battle, but why is the long sword so tattered? Didn't you find a long sword of good quality? With the power of the Lin clan back then, what kind of good sword couldn't they buy? Even if they couldn't buy it, as long as Lin Xiao wanted to, she could definitely snatch it. But the long sword that Wang Sheng and the old Taoist felt from its aura was clearly an ordinary longsword. It was simply the most ordinary longsword bought from a random blacksmith shop in the market. It couldn't even be called top grade, let alone peerless. You said that when cultivation reaches the extreme, one must not be limited by material objects. Grass, wood, bamboo, and stone can all be used as swords. Lin Xiao replied seriously. At that time, my cultivation wasn't enough, so I had to use a sword. It's much better now. Look, a branch is enough. It's my fault again. Wang Sheng couldn't help but groan in his heart. Chapter 1459. While Wang Sheng was calculating how much of a scapegoat he should take, the situation in the core area of the Land of Thousand Extremities had changed. In just a few days, the water level of the glacier lake had dropped by about 20 meters. Water flowed continuously underground. Even though it flowed slowly, a lot of the water had flowed away in the past 20 days. Song Yin was sitting on a large ship that was anchored near the exit that Wang Sheng had left through. From the looks of it, Song Yin was going to wait here until the glacier lake dried up. Song Yin wasn't the only one on the ship. There were also people from the other 7 clans. The leaders of the 7 clans who had gone down to the underground tunnel with Song Yin were all present, except for the one from the Dai clan who had died. The formation master from the Dai family had also been present at the time. After the leader died, he had temporarily taken over the leader's position. The news had already been sent back to the various families, and the family heads' orders had also been sent back. In short, all the families had to keep an eye on everything. Before the family heads and grand elders arrived, no one was allowed to enter the underground passage. Therefore, apart from this exit, the entrance that Wang Sheng and the others had used to enter the underground passage was heavily guarded by the 8 families. Even insects couldn't get in. The patriarchs and grand elders of the various families had already set off from their respective families. However, even if they had flying mounts, it would still take them a day or 2 to arrive. In these 2 days, the various families could only wait here, unable to do anything. However, it wasn't that they couldn't do anything. At least there was a group of legendary experts who could enter the Land of Thousand Extremities to kill Wang Sheng and block the other family's chances to enter. Those experts weren't willing to wait here, but many of them had already entered the Land of Thousand Extremities. Song Yin was also bored from waiting, but this kind of waiting was beneficial to the Song family. She had more first-hand information than anyone else in the other families and had a better understanding of the details inside. This would be an advantage when the time came. Sometimes, Song Yin was also worried about Wang Sheng. She had warned the experts of the Song family not to kill them all, but who knew what the other families would think? For example, the Dai family was determined to kill Wang Sheng. 2 small flying demonic beasts flew over from the Land of 1,000 Despair, and everyone could see them from afar. This was the demonic beast used to communicate in the grounds of 1,000 Extremities. Someone had already sent out a special signal and was waiting for the demonic beast to land. Under everyone's gaze, the 2 small flying demonic beasts landed on the shoulders of the 2 people. Of the 2 little demonic beasts, one landed on the messenger of the Song family, and the other on the messenger of the Tang family. Obviously, these were private messages between the 2 families. When the others saw this, they didn't want to keep staring, so they looked away. In any case, everyone was here. As long as no one entered the underground tunnel from here, it would be fine. It would not be a problem if someone sent or received a few more letters. The messenger from the Song clan took a bamboo tube from the leg of the flying demon beast and quickly brought it to Song Yin. Song Yin looked to her left and right. Without saying a word, her subordinates immediately stood around Song Yin, blocking everyone's sight. Song Yin took out a thin roll of animal skin from the bamboo tube and unfolded it. Her eyes immediately sharpened. However, it returned to normal in an instant, as if nothing had happened. The scroll didn't have much space, so there wasn't much recorded. The woman that Wang Sheng brought with him went on a killing spree. The members of the Song family, who were hiding in the back, quickly retreated when they saw that the situation was not good. More than 10 smart people from the Tang family also retreated with them. The rest were silent, and no one knew what had happened. Although there wasn't much recorded and the results were ambiguous, Song Yin couldn't be completely sure. However, for Song Yin, this was enough for her to deduce a lot of things. Song Yin wasn't surprised at all that Lin Ling killed quite a lot of people. The #1 master of the Lin family 500 years ago, if she really recovered, what was the big deal about killing a few legendary masters? As for the leader of the Song family's team who said he didn't know the final outcome, Song Yin could guess that those who didn't manage to escape in time must have died. After rolling up the bee skin scroll and putting it away, the people around Song Yin spread out. Song Yin's gaze seemed to casually glance at the leader of the Tang family. She just happened to see that the leader of the Tang family had just put away a similar scroll. As soon as that person raised his head, his gaze actually swept over to them, intentionally or unintentionally. Their gazes met, and they both looked away as if nothing had happened. Song Yin's expression didn't change, and so did the person from the Tang clan. They continued to do what they were doing, and no one noticed anything amiss. Song Yin thought to herself, the Tang family still had some brains. After noticing the movement of the Song family, they decisively left. Otherwise, the entire Tang family would be annihilated. The other family members didn't know yet. Song Yin sneered in her heart. For this mission, each family sent an average of about 50 masters. They were all legendary masters. No one from the Song family died. About 2/3 of the Tang family died. The rest probably wouldn't be able to come back. If their patriarchs knew that their men had all died on their way here, what would they think? Song Yin felt very strange. Before she left, she told her subordinates not to force Wang Sheng too much. She even told the leader of the team not to force them too much. Song Yin didn't believe that other families wouldn't do this. But why would those guys fight with Wang Sheng? Did no one tell them? Or were there people pretending to obey? He turned his head to look at the Tang family's reaction as he was observing the water level. However, the Tang family did not react at all. More detailed information from the front lines hadn't been sent back yet. It would probably be a while before they knew. But Song Yin guessed that there were people from other families who didn't follow the family's orders. This wasn't strange at all. When those experts advanced from the 8th stage to the 9th stage and then to the legendary realm in recent years, their mentality had changed. When one's cultivation level was higher than that of the patriarch or even the majority of the elder council members, one's attitude toward carrying out their orders will be discounted. No wonder Wang Sheng said that these masters had just advanced and weren't familiar with this state. It seemed that it wasn't just cultivation level and combat power. To a large extent, it also included mentality. They didn't have the mentality to reach this state. This was the biggest disadvantage. Strangely, Song Yin didn't seem worried about Lin Ling's recovery at all. As long as she thought of Wang Sheng, she felt there was nothing to worry about. On the other hand, the 24 mysterious ancestors beneath their feet made Song Yin feel a sense of threat. She hoped it was an illusion. Chapter 1460. Other than the Tang clan and the Song clan, the other clans did not receive any news about the outcome of the attack on Wang Sheng. Everyone was dead, and no one could pass any news to them. Song Yin and the members of the Tang family had no qualms about keeping the matter a secret. The fact that all the experts of the Tang family had rushed out without a care in the world was not because of the Tang family, nor was it because of the Song family. The fact that no news had spread was because the Tang family had made inadequate arrangements, and no one else could be blamed for it. In fact, Song Yin really wanted to see the expressions of the 6 clan heads when they heard the news. Unfortunately, they were not there yet, and she could not see the exciting performance. Waiting was boring, especially when everyone had to be careful of each other, afraid that one of them would be the first to take the spoils. However, it seemed like the heavens did not want them to wait, and soon they received news. In less than 2 hours, the sound of flying demonic beasts could be heard in the sky. Everyone raised their heads and saw a group of demonic beasts flying over to deliver messages. This time it was not just the Tang clan and the Song clan alone, but all the other clans. After reading the message brought by the flying demonic beasts, everyone frowned. Song Yin was the same, staring at the beast-hide scroll for a long time. Trouble. The news that the 8 great clans had discovered 24 sealing formations in the core region of the Grounds of Thousand Despair, and sealed 24 experts from 500 years ago had already spread. It was no longer a secret. What was more troublesome was that those experts would rather be sealed than leave, because they were guarding the secrets of the core region of the Grounds of Thousand Despair. The news came from the capital, and every clan had an elder stationed in the capital. This time, the emperor had summoned them and told them the news. The emperor had also said that they were not the only ones who had received the news. The news had been sold at least 100 times in the worry-free city, and it was believed that the smaller clans and sect had already received it. The imperial clan had received the news from the worry-free city, and it was a few assassins from the worry-free city who had sold the news. It was said that those assassins were the first to meet Wang Sheng in the Grounds of Thousand Despair. They had no personal grudges with Wang Sheng, and Wang Sheng had used a piece of news in exchange for them leaving. It was very fair. If Wang Sheng was here, he would definitely give Tianzi a thumbs up. They were obviously from the Godly Might prison and the Emperor's men, but they directly threw the blame to Carefree City. The Emperor himself even pretended to be warm-hearted and pretended to discuss with the other parties. He was truly an expert at playing politics. If he were to investigate further, he might really be able to find out that the people who sold the information were definitely from Carefree City. At the very least, they were definitely registered assassins from Carefree City. Who asked anyone in the worry-free city to take on missions with the name of an assassin? Worry-free City was bound to suffer this loss. Now, the various families should no longer care about who leaked the news. In the end, it must be Wang Sheng. With such a secretive piece of information, the 8 great clans were clearly planning to monopolize it. They didn't want the imperial family to play with those small clans and sections. However, now that Wang Sheng had leaked it, the entire world knew about it. It was impossible to hide it even if he wanted to. Although the 8 great clans were powerful and could control the situation of the world together, it didn't mean that they could cover the sky with one hand. If the imperial family, those small sects, and the Godly Might prison, Carefree City, and other forces, even the 8 great clans would have to be careful. Song Yin gnashed her teeth in hatred. She really wanted to bite off a piece of flesh from that heartless man right in front of Wang Sheng. She had already been merciful and had her subordinates secretly let Wang Sheng off. Yet, in the end, this enemy actually repaid her like this. After hating for a while, Song Yin couldn't keep hating him. She thought she let Wang Sheng go, but didn't Wang Sheng also let the Song family go? She could kill more than 300 legendary masters, but why didn't she touch the Song family? Could the Song family really run faster than Linling? Losing 50 legendary masters at once, Song Yin didn't even dare to imagine how heartbroken the Song family would be if it was the same. The other 6 families didn't know yet, but now, Song Yin was looking forward to seeing their expressions. But this wasn't the biggest problem. Now that the imperial family had formed an alliance with those small forces to discuss with the 8 great clans, no matter how unwilling the 8 great clans were, they could only discuss with them. However, the other few family leaders were still on the way. She didn't know if they received the news. If it had been 2 hours ago, Song Yan's idea would have been to negotiate with the people in the capital city first and drag things out slowly. Here, everyone would have to speed up their work and finish the job before the other side came to a conclusion. As long as the 24 seals were unlocked and the 24 experts under their control, the 8 great clans would still have the upper hand. By then, it would be up to the 8 great clans to decide whether they should give the imperial family a share or leave them a mouthful of soup. This was also the simplest method, and it could be easily solved by stalling for time. If those outsiders wanted to enter the land of thousand despair, the 400 or so legendary masters would definitely make it impossible for them to come out. No matter who came in, they would die without a grave. Other than the Tang and Song family leaders, the other 6 great clans were thinking the same thing. With 400 legendary masters blocking the way, who could come in? Wouldn't they let the 8 great clans slowly eat and drink? After eating and drinking to their heart's content, they would see which small sect could flatter them and give them a mouthful of soup to drink. Sure enough, before Song Yin could open her mouth, the Gon family leader, who was also an elder of the Gon family, had already said in a loud voice, "It's not a big deal." Sent a message to the people outside and asked them to seal the place tightly. Kill anyone who comes in. How many people can come in? When that time comes, we will have the final say on what the secret is. The Shi family, Dai family, Chiu family, Xia family, and Feng family leaders nodded repeatedly at the words of the Gon family leader. It really wasn't a big deal. Those guys outside were shouting fiercely, but they didn't have the guts or the ability to go against the 8 great clans. The 8 great clans had this kind of confidence. Why? Does Miss Song have a different opinion? The 6 great clans nodded, but Song Yin and the Tang family leader didn't. Obviously, the Feng family leader immediately frowned and asked Song Yin in confusion. At the same time, he also looked at the Tang family leader. Song Yin looked at the Tang family leader, who also looked at Song Yin. At this time, there's really no need to hide anything. After all, the interests of the 8 great clans were one. Therefore, Song Yin didn't say anything and just nodded. Just now, we received a message from someone inside. Seeing that Song Yin nodded, the Tang family leader didn't remain silent. He directly said to the crowd, "The people inside attacked Duke Chongsheng. Duke Chongsheng fought back and we lost a lot of people. I don't know why your people didn't send back the message. Maybe something happened to the messenger demonic beast." Chapter 1461. The leaders of the 6 families were shocked. Something had happened to the people inside, and there was no news. How was that possible? Thinking of how the Song and Tang families had received messengers, they couldn't help but believe it. But how could something like this happen? Didn't they say that the masters of the families would just slowly force Wang Sheng to stay and not let him escape? Why did they suddenly attack Wang Sheng? Did something happen to the messengers? If this was a normal situation, everyone would definitely believe it. After all, this was the land of despair, and the casualty rate of messengers was already very high. Before the glacier lake thawed, the casualty rate of messengers was almost 3 to 5 messengers per trip. It was a little low now, but it wasn't a big deal to lose 1 or 2 messengers. But the problem was that this distance was too short. It was such a short distance from the outskirts of the lands of thousand extremities to the core. How could so many demon beast messengers be killed? If 1 or 2 families didn't receive messengers, it would be fine. But if the 6 families couldn't, then there must be a problem. Besides, the leader of the Tang family had just said that the 2 families had also suffered heavy losses. There were no messengers. It was more likely that the people inside didn't release any messengers at all. There were all kinds of possibilities. No one could be sure, not even the Song family and the Tang family. How did they attack? The leader of the Chiu family asked hurriedly. The others were also listening attentively, waiting for the result. I don't know. The leader of the Tang family shook his head. They only said that the Dai family attacked first. Duke Chongsheng created a fog that covered half of the forest. We don't know what happened inside. Some of our people ran away when they saw that the situation was not good. The Song family. The Song family is the same. Song Yin replied with a hint of helplessness on her face. We've lost more than half of our people. There are still 21 survivors. The Tang family couldn't monitor every member of the Song family. The masters of the Song family were scattered when they retreated. Apart from the Song family, no one knew how many of them survived. Song Yin only said half of the story to make it sound more balanced. She didn't want the Song family to suffer any losses and cause a rift in the 8 families. There are 15 survivors from the Tang family. The leader of the Tang family let out a long sigh and gave a specific number. However, he turned to look at the leader of the Dai family. Not only was the Tang clan looking at the leader of the Dai clan, but the other clans were also looking at him. The Dai clan made the first move. What did that mean? It didn't matter if they killed Wang Sheng or captured Wang Sheng alive. However, the reality was that the various families had suffered heavy losses. If the Dai family didn't give an explanation, they probably wouldn't be able to get past the 7 families. I don't know. The leader of the Dai family shook his head. The order was not given by me, but by the patriarch himself. Aren't you the same? Everyone was stunned. They had forgotten about this. Although the patriarch had given a copy of the orders to the team leaders inside, he had also clearly said that the specific situation inside should be dealt with accordingly, and there was no need to stick to it. Who knew if there would be a situation inside where they had no choice but to fight? The people inside had not come out, so no one knew what had happened. If they wanted to know, they could only wait until they found those people. However, the problem now was that if each family had suffered heavy losses, who would stop the experts outside who wanted to come in? At this moment, the leaders of the 6 families hadn't realized that their own experts had been completely wiped out. Everyone had the same thought. Perhaps they had all suffered heavy losses, and the experts responsible for delivering the message had met with an accident, so the message couldn't be delivered. But in any case, it was impossible for them to be unscathed. The leaders were anxious, and they didn't know how to deal with the situation in front of them. The key was that they couldn't make all the decisions. While they were hesitating, the messenger beasts from the Song family and the Tang family had already flown out. Suddenly, everyone was stunned, and then they scolded themselves in their hearts. Since they couldn't make the decision on their side, and there was no way to determine what to do, then why didn't they quickly send the message to the people who could make the decision? In a short while, more than 10 messenger beasts immediately took off, and each flew in a different direction. Everyone looked at the messenger beasts that flew away, and for the first time, they had doubts about the idea of monopolizing the secret of the place of thousand despair. Wang Sheng and Lin Xiu had been walking for more than an hour, and they found another suitable place to rest. Aki's injuries were very stable, but she still hadn't woken up. Without modern medical means, and just relying on Wang Sheng's 7-words formula, it would probably still take some time for Aki to wake up. Are those cultivation ideas of yours correct? Wang Sheng helped Lin Xiu to sit properly as he chatted with her. Most of them are correct, Lin Xiu replied, not without pride. In Wang Sheng's opinion, Lin Xiu was simply a little girl who was obsessed with martial arts and didn't care about anything else. She had her own supreme pride when she was fighting, and it was the same when she was cultivating. However, in front of Wang Sheng, she was just a comrade in arms who had a tacit understanding with him, and a little girl who already had a crush on Wang Sheng. In fact, Wang Sheng was the same. When he came over from Earth, he was only thinking about the girl of his dreams. Later on, he also slowly developed feelings for Song Yin and Mayor Rosa after spending a long time with them. In his heart, hadn't he always regarded the girl of his dreams as the one he had been waiting for? Up until now, Wang Sheng hadn't gotten married. Firstly, Wang Sheng didn't want to implicate Mayor, Rosa, and the others. Most importantly, he had always been thinking about the girl of his dreams, and he had always been waiting for the day to reunite. Now, the two of them had an indescribable tacit understanding. Even though one of them was seriously injured and the other was extremely weak, it still couldn't stop them from having an in-depth conversation for the first time in 500 years. What happens if it's not correct? Wang Sheng asked with a smile. Of course, he wasn't asking what would happen to Lin Xiu, but to the experts from the various clans who had been misled. There are a total of 3. The 3 of them have very extreme cultivation. They are extremely strong in one aspect, but very weak in other aspects. Lin Xiu answered very naturally. Their overall cultivation realm has still increased, but their advantages and disadvantages are equally obvious, and they are very easy to deal with. What about the others? Wang Sheng asked again. Most of them belong to normal cultivation, but it's only normal cultivation in a certain aspect of mine. Lin Xiu answered honestly, several hundred years' time, letting them advance from the 9th stage realm all the way to at least 4 times, no matter what, it isn't considered as me cheating them, right? If their seals are undone, will they be as weak as you after they come out? Wang Sheng asked Lin Xiao. No. Lin Xiao shook her head. They were originally at their peak when they were sealed. Moreover, for the past few hundred years, they've been wholeheartedly comprehending and cultivating. So there's no way for them to know what's happening outside. So they don't expend any mental energy. So their condition is much better than mine. Chapter 1462. Lin Xiao said it in a relaxed manner, but Wang Sheng's heart couldn't relax at all. 24 top exponents, according to what Lin Xiao said, they had advanced at least 4 times from that year's 9th-stage realm. So there were 13-stage realm top exponents. Coming out in one piece, to Wang Sheng, to the current Lin Xiao, and even to the 8 large clans, it wasn't a good news. Old Taoist Ling Su was incredible, right? If Lin Xiao and the others didn't come out, then he would absolutely be the world's #1 top exponent. 13th-stage realm, it could simply be said to be unprecedented. But this batch of old fellows who came out were all in 13th-stage realm. Even if their cultivation direction was wrong, according to Lin Xiao's words, their realms had also increased, just that their development in various aspects wasn't very balanced. Although Lin Xiao said in contempt that those few people could spit out their strengths and weaknesses and were very easy to deal with, but those were 13th-stage realm top exponents. Even if the old Taoist met them, he would probably have to peel off a layer of skin. If Lin Xiao had also recovered, then naturally it wouldn't be a problem, but Lin Xiao's depletion would require 1.5 years to recover. In this period of time, those 24 top exponents were invincible. To Wang Sheng, Lin Xiao, those 24 top exponents were trouble, but to the 8 large clans, those 24 top exponents were similarly a huge trouble which they were unable to balance. If they knew that as long as they unlocked the seal, any top exponent inside would be able to control the situation, not knowing what they would think, would they still undo those uncertain seals for the sake of Thousand Despair secret? Lin Xiao told Wang Sheng about the things that she sensed outside in the later stages. In actual fact, during the first 10 years of the seal, various large clans people would occasionally appear in the core of Thousand Despair, but after 10 years had passed, basically no one was able to enter the glacier basin. During this period, Lin Xiao had quietly cultivated and comprehended for a few hundred years, all the way until Wang Sheng brought them into the glacier basin. Later on, those people were like headless houseflies bumping around in the ice layer, and Wang Sheng brought them to the Bind Jade Cave Scroll. All these were within Lin Xiao's senses. Does Lin Ling know about these? Wang Sheng couldn't help but asked Lin Xiao. Probably not. Lin Xiao shook her head. I've said it before, there was a period of time in the later stages where she was very simple-minded. When you first brought her in, she should have responded to you, and then it was me. Wang Sheng recalled the words, "You're here," he had heard when he stepped into the core of the glacier basin. It should be Lin Ling, not Lin Xiao. After resting enough, Wang Sheng once again carried Aki on his back and supported Lin Xiao on their journey. They couldn't stay in one place for too long, or else their whereabouts would be easily discovered. If a powerful faction were to surround us at this time, what would you do? After walking for a short distance, Lin Xiao spoke as if she was chatting. Let's see what they want. Wang Sheng replied naturally. What if they want us to die? Lin Xiao asked. Then try to drag as many of their people as possible to die with us. Wang Sheng very calmly stated his plan, not hiding anything from Lin Xiao. Wang Sheng was seriously injured now, and his battle power wasn't even a third of his usual. If he met a group of top exponents, no need for many. As long as there were 10 9th-stage Rel Peak exponents, Wang Sheng probably wouldn't be their match. Lin Xiao's current state was even difficult for her to walk on her own. At most, she could only rely on her battle instinct to kill a few fellows who had killing intent towards her. If those fellows didn't have any killing intent and only wanted to capture her alive, Lin Xiao probably wouldn't be able to handle a few of them. Although Lin Xiao didn't tell Wang Sheng about battle instinct, but Wang Sheng had already experienced it several times previously. Every time, it was those fellows who made a move on Lin Xiao, then Lin Xiao would retaliate. As long as it wasn't against Lin Xiao absolutely wouldn't move. Wang Sheng was able to discover this point. So if they came a few more times, would those experienced exponents not discover it? By then, Lin Xiao would probably have to surrender without putting up a fight. So, Wang Sheng could only drag Lin Xiao to die together with the enemy. He absolutely wasn't willing for Lin Xiao to fall into those people's hands and be humiliated. If they just want to control me and not intend to kill us. Lin Xiao asked again. Depends on the situation. Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao had the experience of working together in a dream before, so his words were also quite straightforward. Try to survive and wait for the opportunity to recover and counterattack. After a pause, Wang Sheng added, when necessary, there's no harm in cooperating with them a little to avoid suffering. As long as you're alive, there's a chance for everything. The training that Wang Sheng received was to complete the mission as the goal and definitely not to make being unyielding the first choice. Some missions simply couldn't be done stealthily when infiltrating, and if necessary, Wang Sheng even had to pretend to be captured. This was an unheard of. Hence, Wang Sheng's philosophy was that as long as you're alive, there's a chance. Previously, Wang Sheng wasn't willing to let Lin Ling and Lin Xiao fall into anyone's hands, but that was because the two hadn't met and communicated. Wang Sheng couldn't make that seemingly humiliating decision for them. Because with Lin Ling and Lin Xiao's pride, they definitely wouldn't be willing to do so. But now that they'd met, Wang Sheng could communicate his intentions to Lin Xiao. Even if Lin Xiao wasn't willing, she could clearly express her attitude. If she really wasn't willing, Wang Sheng could only maintain the first option, which was to drag as many enemies down with him as possible. Wang Sheng wasn't Superman, and he had a clear understanding of himself. In the face of so many legendary powerhouses, he didn't have many trump cards left. Everything depended on Lin Xiao's own choice. Then live. Lin Xiao nodded without hesitation. I'll try my best to help you fight for a chance to leave. When you've recovered, come back and find me. Wang Sheng nodded and didn't say much. He also didn't ask why Lin Xiao brought up this topic, but since it was agreed, Wang Sheng also put down some of his worries. He didn't have to be afraid that the proud Lin Xiao would commit suicide. After walking for a while, Lin Xiao asked curiously, where are we going after leaving the land of thousand despair? We'll go to a relatively safe place and temporarily hide from the 8 great families. When Lin Xiao asked, Wang Sheng immediately replied, when the time comes, we'll need some small disguises. Believe me, the journey will be very interesting. Lin Xiao smiled and didn't say anything, but her eyes revealed a look of anticipation. You won't have a chance. A familiar voice said this sentence coldly. In the next moment, the person who spoke appeared 50 meters away in front of the two of them. Uncle Li? Wang Sheng's gaze suddenly sharpened. Uncle Li's cultivation was at least in the 11th stage realm, so it was normal for Wang Sheng to be unable to discover Uncle Li from a distance. At this time, Uncle Li's appearance here was obviously not to catch up. Just by looking at Uncle Li's cruel sneer, one knew that he wouldn't let Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao off easily. Carefree City? Wang Sheng was very surprised. There was actually no one else in the surroundings except for Uncle Li. Wang Sheng wasn't sure if Uncle Li was acting alone to take revenge or if it was an operation of Carefree City. Chapter 1463. No, it's me. Uncle Li laughed coldly and replied proudly. This obviously told Wang Sheng that he had left the people from Worry-Free City and acted alone. Thinking about it, it was normal. Uncle Li was an 11th stage Epic Realm expert. As long as there wasn't another Epic Realm expert following him closely, no one would be able to keep an eye on him. Previously, Song Yin had agreed to let the people from Worry-Free City participate because the City Lord of Worry-Free City had personally guaranteed it. But at that time, she had only agreed to let the people from Worry-Free City participate in the Glacier Lake Array to obtain the super demonic beast soul. After the array was broken, the agreement had come to an end, and they each went their own way. Everyone was keeping an eye on the secret of the land of Thousand Despair. Moreover, old eunuch Shun had spread the news through the worry-free city. Uncle Li was in a favorable position, so he was the first to know the news. It was normal for him to rush in before anyone else to stop Wang Sheng. "Did you have a good time scolding me in the arsenal of worry-free city?" Uncle Li seemed to understand that he had gained the upper hand. Two of them couldn't move, and one was seriously injured. If he couldn't be complacent with his 11th stage cultivation, wouldn't that mean that Uncle Li was being overly cautious? Isn't it normal to be scolded for not following the rules? Even though Wang Sheng was facing Uncle Li and knew that he would never let the three of them off, he didn't beg for mercy and retorted back, "I have the final say in the arsenal. I can do whatever I want. Who are you to interfere?" Uncle Li knew that he had not followed the rules, but how could he admit his mistake? He laughed sinisterly and retorted back. Perhaps he felt that Wang Sheng and the other two were birds in a cage, and he wasn't afraid of them escaping. He wanted to enjoy the joy of a cat toying with a mouse. So even though Wang Sheng retorted, he didn't make a move directly. Instead, he scolded back while waiting to see the panic on Wang Sheng and Lin Xiu's faces. To Uncle Li, killing too many people was no longer exciting. What was the point of killing people directly? How fun would it be to see those people who were about to die panicking and making a fool of themselves? Anyway, there was plenty of time. He could appreciate the ugliness of Duke Changsheng, who had been superior in front of him several times before. Wang Sheng's performance was in line with Uncle Li's judgment. In the beginning, he would definitely appear righteous and righteous. However, as more pressure was applied, he would slowly break down. In the end, he would kowtow and beg for mercy. When Uncle Li was done admiring him, he would make a move to end him. Did he really think that he would let him off just because he begged for mercy? That was simply too naive. When you wore that boxing glove to fight in the capital, it seemed that you, Lord Changsheng, were also very impressive. After talking about the things in the arsenal, Uncle Li began to talk about the things in the capital. In the end, he asked with a proud smile, "Now that there is no old Taoist by your side, I don't know if Duke Changsheng can still be happy." In the capital, Wang Sheng had relied on old Taoist Ling Su to suppress Uncle Li's arrogance. Later on, during the Grandmaster's concert, countless people advanced to the next level, and the large spiritual energy mass also suppressed Uncle Li, making it impossible for him to flare up no matter what. Now, facing Wang Sheng and the other two, Uncle Li finally had a chance to deal with Wang Sheng. A good deal would definitely leave a deep impression on Wang Sheng until he died. Wang Sheng's hand gently held Lin Xiu's small hand and moved her behind him. Fairy Lin Xiu's condition was not suitable for battle. The heaven and earth spiritual energy that she had absorbed when the giant bear advanced had been completely exhausted. If she fought again, she could only use her fighting instincts. However, the consumption of fighting instincts would damage Lin Xiu's foundation, especially in a battle with an expert like Uncle Li. After this battle, Lin Xiu would probably return to the state where she had just come out of the ceiling array formation. Wang Sheng did not want to see Lin Xiu become so miserable again. Uncle Li clearly did not intend to let Wang Sheng and Lin Xiu go. In that case, why should Wang Sheng say anything to Uncle Li? Satisfy Uncle Li's bad taste? Wang Sheng did not have that kind of bad taste. After pulling Lin Xiu behind him, Wang Sheng's other hand had already taken out a loaded heavy sniper crossbow and was ready to fight. Of course, Uncle Li saw Wang Sheng's actions, but he did not care at all. Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow was famous and very powerful, but it could at most deal with experts below the legendary realm. For Uncle Li, who was already at the epic realm, as long as he was not directly shot in the eyes or nostrils, he could completely ignore the heavy arrows shot by the heavy sniper crossbow. That's great. Uncle Li's eyes flickered with excitement. I like to sweat a little and kill the enemy. If you don't resist at all, how boring would that be? Only with hard work will there be gains. Am I right? His bloodthirsty gaze, coupled with his cruel expression, made Uncle Li appear incomparably ferocious at this moment. As he strode over, Uncle Li stared at Wang Sheng's hands. It was true that he was not afraid of the heavy arrows, but it did not mean that he was not on guard. Wang Sheng was currently incomparably calm, his eyes fixed on Uncle Li's figure, waiting for him to reveal a flaw at any time, and he would launch a thunderous strike. Given Wang Sheng's current condition, he only had the strength to launch a single attack. In the face of Uncle Li's immense pressure, at the juncture of life and death, Wang Sheng knew the 9 words mantra, Taiji fist, and the military's killing techniques. These different things spun madly in Wang Sheng's mind, seemingly about to merge into one. It was not just these few things. The carving skills that Wang Sheng had learned from Master Lu, the skills that he had learned from carving the concentric spheres, and a large amount of spiritual energy driven by various kinds of music were all gathered in Wang Sheng's mind at this moment. The tiny person with the combat consciousness finally stopped staying in a corner of Wang Sheng's soul space. It seemed to have suddenly accepted everything in Wang Sheng's mind. It instantly turned into 128 clones and started practicing again. This was a pleasant surprise. Wang Sheng thought that after Lin Xiu came out, the tiny person with the combat consciousness would not be able to use the little person with the combat consciousness. In the end, it gave Wang Sheng another pleasant surprise. The Taiji Yin-Yang vortex and the 512 acupuncture points had already started spinning crazily, ready to launch Wang Sheng's strongest attack at any time. With 512 acupuncture points, the primordial Guiyuan hand could amplify the power of Wang Sheng's attack by 25. 6 times. Even Uncle Li would not be able to easily take on an attack that was 25 times stronger than Wang Sheng's attack, right? Uncle Li had already walked to a position 10 meters away from Wang Sheng, but suddenly his movements were slightly affected by a vine under his feet, causing a flaw that others would not be able to catch. However, Wang Sheng was the best sniper. He had found the opportunity to kill the enemy many times in the blink of an eye. At this moment, how could he still hesitate? The heavy sniper crossbow instantly fired, and the heavy arrow went straight for Uncle Li's eyes. In the next moment, Wang Sheng's figure flew out like an angry arrow, and he swung the tiger fang saber in his hand fiercely. Chapter 1464. For the heavy arrow fired from the heavy sniper crossbow, a distance of 10 meters could be covered in an instant. It was as if the moment Wang Sheng pulled the trigger, the arrow had already arrived in front of Uncle Li. Uncle Li was also a smart person. His carelessness just now was not due to his negligence, but a deliberate act. The heavy sniper crossbow was indeed a famous heavy sniper crossbow. Uncle Li did not dare to underestimate it. Instead of letting Wang Sheng hold it, which would always be a threat to him, it was better to give Wang Sheng a chance to destroy this long-range weapon. It was also because of this thought that Uncle Li revealed a slight flaw in his plan. It was as if a flying insect had flashed in front of his eyes and his feet had tripped on a vine. Just as his body reacted, Wang Sheng's heavy arrow shot over. Nuclear weapons were the most powerful when they were not fired. Once they were fired, the power of deterrence would be greatly reduced. It was the same with the heavy sniper crossbow. Uncle Li was still worried, so he tried to lure Wang Sheng to fire it. Now, Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow was no longer a secret. Many people knew that once it was fired, it would not be easy to pull the string again. Even Wang Sheng needed time. However, as long as Uncle Li dodged the first attack, he would not give Wang Sheng any chance to pull the string again. Uncle Li's cultivation was high, and his personality was absolutely ruthless. Not only was he ruthless to others, but he was also very ruthless to himself. The heavy arrow was originally aimed at Uncle Li's right eye. At that moment, Uncle Li could not dodge it. He could only rush forward crazily, and the heavy arrow that was originally aimed at his right eye instantly shot toward his forehead. Compared to the fragile eye, Uncle Li's forehead had a hard skull. Coupled with Uncle Li's powerful cultivation, he did not care about the heavy arrow at all. Bang! The arrowhead of the heavy arrow hit Uncle Li's forehead, as expected. The arrow pierced through the skin on Uncle Li's forehead and then stopped on Uncle Li's hard skull. It did not hit his body, so naturally it could not trigger the explosion formation on the heavy arrow. The heavy arrow directly bounced back and fell to the ground in vain. Other than a small wound on Uncle Lee's forehead, he was completely unharmed. However, Uncle Lee had also miscalculated the power of the heavy arrow. Although the heavy arrow did not break his skull, the huge impact was not any less. Taking this arrow head-on was equivalent to having a force of tens of thousands of kilograms directly smashed into his forehead. After a bang, even Uncle Lee felt a little dizzy. Uncle Lee had no choice but to receive the arrow. Wang Sheng's arrow was too fast, and when Uncle Lee appeared, the distance was too close. Within 50 meters, the heavy arrow would not miss the target. Instead of randomly dodging and letting Wang Sheng hit other parts of his body, it was better for Uncle Lee to choose where he would be hit and then enjoy the pleasure of slowly torturing Wang Sheng with some pain. Just as Uncle Lee had said, it was boring to do something that could be done with just a wave of one's hand. No matter what, one had to sweat a little to enjoy it. What's more, how exciting was this moment of life and death? It was this thought that made Uncle Lee make the mistake of underestimating his enemy. After the arrow, Uncle Lee actually became absent-minded for a moment. If the distance was far, it would not have mattered. In any case, it would only be for a moment. Uncle Lee circulated his spirit energy slightly, and the absent-mindedness caused by the huge impact had already disappeared. The problem was that Uncle Lee was skilled and daring, and he wanted to play with the excitement. He had already rushed to a distance of 10 meters from Wang Sheng before he induced Wang Sheng to shoot the arrow. Uncle Lee himself was also rushing forward, and Wang Sheng was also rushing forward. After Uncle Lee dispersed the dizziness in his head with spirit energy, he realized that Wang Sheng's attack had already reached him. In the midst of the chaos, Uncle Lee's movements were extremely fast. In an instant, a short knife appeared in his hand and accurately collided with Wang Sheng's canine teeth, causing sparks to fly. In that instant, Uncle Lee discovered that the dagger he had been meticulously maintaining for decades had been sliced by Wang Sheng's dagger, and a third of its blade had been cut into it. Good knife, Uncle Lee praised in his heart. It seemed that not only would he be able to kill Wang Sheng this time, he would also be able to obtain a lot of good things from Wang Sheng. There might even be hundreds of millions of gold coins. After all, the gold notes were printed by Li Zhenfang, and Wang Sheng could probably have as much as he wanted. The weapons collided, and both of their arms bent. Wang Sheng's strength was much stronger than Uncle Lee's, and Uncle Lee's arm bounced back, and he almost stabbed the short knife in his hand into his own body. Uncle Lee was greatly shocked, and his spirit energy erupted, instantly recovering from the disadvantage in strength. When he had sparred with Wang Sheng in the capital, Uncle Lee had not experienced Wang Sheng's true strength. Only now did he understand how powerful Wang Sheng was. However, it was impossible for Wang Sheng to defeat Uncle Lee with physical strength. Wang Sheng also knew this, but he had been waiting for this opportunity. Just as Uncle Lee used his spirit energy to resist Wang Sheng's strength, and before he had time to recover, Wang Sheng punched at Uncle Lee with his other hand. At this moment, Wang Sheng secretly activated the primordial Guiyuan palm, and with all the spirit energy that Wang Sheng could use, he attacked Uncle Lee. Uncle Lee's other hand also clenched into a fist, and his fist accurately collided with Wang Sheng's. Boom! A loud explosion sounded, and the two figures were sent flying in different directions like two cannonballs. Both of them flew at least 10 meters in the air before landing on the ground. Wang Sheng struggled to get up, and as soon as he sat up, he vomited a mouthful of blood. The wound on his abdomen, which had already healed slightly, burst open again in that instant, and fresh blood gushed out. His internal organs were violently shaken again, and the indescribable pain almost made Wang Sheng fall to the ground. On the other side, Uncle Lee was not much better. His body was sent flying, and he crashed heavily into the trunk of a large tree. The trunk was as thick as an adult's waist, and he fell to the ground. Like Wang Sheng, as soon as he landed, Uncle Lee rolled and tried to stand up, but he did not succeed. Instead, this movement caused him to vomit a mouthful of blood. The short knife in Uncle Lee's hand had already flown away, and he struggled to sit up. His face was filled with shock, and he looked at Wang Sheng as if he was looking at a monster. How is this possible? Uncle Lee's voice was filled with fear. Wang Sheng was just a young fellow who had just entered the legendary realm. How could he be evenly matched with an epic realm expert like him? How does the primordial Guyuan palm feel? Wang Sheng looked at Uncle Lee's sorry state from afar, and he felt indescribable joy in his heart. Uncle Lee, you personally helped me choose the secret manual back then. How has my cultivation been all these years? When Uncle Lee heard this, he vomited another mouthful of blood. He never would have thought that the secret manual that he had personally chosen for Wang Sheng had caused him, an epic realm expert, to be injured. Could this be considered as a self-inflicted evil? Just as Uncle Lee was thinking about how to quickly recover and tear Wang Sheng and the two women to shreds, a voice that surprised Wang Sheng rang out. It was accompanied by a sweet laughter. The famous Uncle Lee is only SOSO. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.